Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1397 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news that U.S. forces are currently chasing down an Iranian-linked ship near the Venezuelan coast in a hot pursuit, as they call it. Also, Israel's warning of an imminent Iranian strike on their country soon, and apparently Israel's preparing preemptive strikes on Iran. And also, Ukraine strikes Russia with drones and missiles again tonight, and we have very big news to cover. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as significant developments have come from the Eastern Caribbean, the eastern area of Europe, and East Asia, for that matter. Basically, everything east is quite big in the news today. We have heard that the United States Armed Forces, especially that of the United States Coast Guard, is currently chasing down an Iranian tanker that has broken through the blockade and appears to be refusing to stop at the moment. From what we understand, the Coast Guard has put on its police lights and is yelling over the intercom for the ship to pull over and for the driver to step out of the vehicle. However, the Iranian driver does not appear to be listening, and the vessel is continuing at full speed at this moment, with the United States Coast Guard in full pursuit. Meanwhile, several other ships have been turned away today, with 4 vessels turning around right before the Iranian tanker decided to get pretty ballsy with the action that it just took, and those vessels are apparently not going to be entering Venezuelan ports anytime soon. Meanwhile, we have also heard that the Venezuelan tanker, or more so Iranian tanker, that was seized by court order has just arrived in Galveston, Texas today, while more aerial tankers are being seen within the area of MacDill Air Force Base, and a larger amount of F-35 Lightnings are being seen currently at Roosevelt Roads Naval Air Station in Puerto Rico. Outside of that, we have also gotten significant developments from the Middle East, as the state of Israel is now warning that it appears that the Islamic Republic of Iran is preparing for a preemptive strike against the state of Israel and is discussing discussing with the United States the potential for a possible preemptive strike to counter the Iranian preemptive strike before the Iranians can fire off their preemptive attack. The United States of America has apparently stated, according to Israeli news sources, that they are not giving the Israelis permission to conduct any forms of attacks or strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran, even as the Islamic Republic of Iran, by satellite and picture evidence, is building up large stocks of short-range ballistic missiles and is currently building an airbase around the city of Kerman, with reconstruction efforts now underway at a much faster pace now than they have been in prior months. Meanwhile, in Southeast Asia, the Thailand-Cambodia war is still going on quite strongly. And while the Thai do appear to have the upper hand by far, the Cambodians do seem to be receiving some form of military support from the People's Republic of China in incredibly small equipments, in the form of FPV drones and other forms of weapon systems that we have now seen on the Cambodian front. Meanwhile, the Swedes have also boarded and stopped a Russian vessel today named the Adler to inspect it for a possible Russian weapons shipment that is trying to make its way into the Russian Federation. This seizure, or more so stop and inspection, has been conducted near to the Strait of Denmark and is currently ongoing at this moment. Meanwhile, the French have announced that they are actually going to be talking to Putin here soon to ensure that the European Union is involved in the peace talks, or to completely supplant the United States in potential peace talks at the moment, and to see that the European position strategically is ensured well into the future due to active French and European involvement. Outside of that, the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to hold their lines today and inflict significant casualties onto the Russian Federation's armed forces. An oil loading terminal near to the area of the city of Volna and Taman on the Kerch Strait has been hit directly by Ukrainian drones overnight, while at the same time we finally got more picture and video evidence of the sunken ship that is currently sitting within the Don River that was hit several days ago and is apparently resting on the very bottom of the Don River at the moment. We are going to be making sure to get through each and every single major piece of news that we have over the course of this day, starting with our largest stories first, and then working our way on through those stories throughout the night.
Honestly, though, you gotta admit that it's a crazy day when you hear about a hot pursuit of an oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast. That's crazy. This is probably the biggest pursuit that's happened since OJ fled in the Bronco. This is a big one here. They're whipping a tanker ship. They're being chased by the U.S. Coast Guard and the Navy in an oil tanker. That's insane.
I got to be honest with y'all, folks. This is quite a wild pursuit, and I do have to say that this is a high-speed pursuit to be certain, considering that this vessel's top speed is around 14 to 16 knots, which is about 18 miles an hour. So this is definitely one of the high-speed pursuits that has ever been seen on the high seas, and it is quite gripping, to say the least. We will be getting to that here in a moment, but I do, of course, want to make sure to give our obligatory mention that tonight we are not only running our YouTube fundraiser, but we also have a special announcement for a fundraiser that we're actually collaborating with United 24 on to help them to assist in, that we'll be talking about a little bit later on stream. But currently, our current fundraiser that is running as a part of YouTube Gives fundraiser system is for Nova Ukraine, which is an absolutely incredible nonprofit that has been helping incredibly hard inside of Ukraine and is based inside of Ukraine. They provide humanitarian assistance to be able to help Ukrainian citizens get away from the line of fire and to be able to further protect them and help them, so that way the Ukrainian government can focus less on the humanitarian situation and more so on the frontline situation itself. But with that in mind, folks, and that important announcement out of the way, considering it is the Sunday night fundraiser, it is time for us to move on into the major news that we have today. So, let us move on down into the Eastern Caribbean. As many of y'all know, the famous segment for the hunt for Captain Croc Sparrow, as we have heard developments and news that has confirmed that currently an Iranian tanker is barreling at full speed at this moment out of the blockade and is still going at this moment from what we understand. This is quite a significant development and is, by the way, the first vessel that we have seen and can confirm that has broken the active blockade that exists around Venezuela at this moment. Earlier in the day, we were able to hear that apparently a ship had been attempted to be seized as a Guyana-flagged Iranian-linked sanctioned crude oil tanker, the MT Bella 1, has refused to be boarded and is actively fleeing the U.S. Coast Guard in the southern Caribbean off of the coast of Venezuela, according to 3 U.S. officials who spoke to the New York Times. This situation is still ongoing at this moment, as we have not heard confirmation from the U.S. Department of Defense, or the Coast Guard for that matter, that this vessel has actually been stopped and seized by the United States Armed Forces. The vessel that is actually in question is this one right here. In this picture, it was called the Overseas Mulan. Currently, it's actually called the Bella 1. We actually have a picture of that vessel in our thumbnail. It doesn't appear to be in great condition, considering that it is on an Iranian tanker sanctions list. We wouldn't assume it to be in great condition, but they are still in active pursuit of this vessel at the moment right now, and they still have not boarded it, and this pursuit has been ongoing for about 10 hours from what we can tell. After this
That's
pursuit,
strange. That's strange though, isn't it? Like, why does the vessel moving and fleeing? And when they say a vessel is fleeing, it's not like the vessel suddenly like spawned a Hellcat engine inside of it or something. It's still going at normal speed. So it simply kept moving. So my question is the Coast Guard not able to board the vessel while it's moving, or do they have to have it stop first before they can have the repellers go down the ropes and then go take the bridge?
we're not really sure. We do know that the U.S. Coast Guard can repel onto vessels that are moving and mobile. It is not required for the ship to be stopped, but it is believed that it could be a more risky situation considering that the ship could be moving at a higher speed. But we actually have this ship right now on Marine Tracker right here. And it doesn't appear to be moving that quickly, to be entirely honest with y'all. Either this is showing that the pursuit has ended and the Coast Guard is boarding the vessel, or they are currently conducting a quote-unquote high-speed chase into the Caribbean with a vessel that's only going 2.9 knots, which is about 3.5 miles an hour. So it's not really going that fast. We do understand that according to its navigational status, it is still underway at this moment, and if we were to take a better look at this vessel, we would have to unlock all of the layers, like an onion, which unfortunately we do not have access to at this moment. We just got Flight Radar 24 Gold. We have not gotten Marine Tracker Gold, so unfortunately we wouldn't be able to show y'all its prior path at the moment, but it does appear that this pursuit has apparently started somewhere within the area leading into the Caribbean and is ongoing outside of the Caribbean. It's not actually that close to the Venezuelan coast, and this is the very crude oil tanker that we are looking for. As a matter of fact, this is the exact same picture that the press has been using in general over the course of the day to speak on this vessel. It is the very same picture and the very same crude oil tanker. For this reason, we do not know how the chase or the pursuit is going at the moment. The United States could be boarding the ship right now, or we may still be in pursuit of this vessel, although it's literally going 3.5 miles an hour. It does appear, however, that because of this, 4 other ships, from what has been reported, actually turned around and started heading out of the area after the Bella 1 began its high-speed pursuit. We've actually been able to hear that the captain on board the ship has been saying, if the propeller doesn't fit, one must acquit. We don't really know what he's talking about, but Bloomberg then reported that 4 vessels that were heading to Venezuela turned around after the skipper was detained. The vessels are the Panama-flagged Bella 1, which was sanctioned by the U.S. for its involvement in the illicit transport of Iranian oil, and the tanker Seeker 8, Carina, and Euro Victory, according to data from marine intelligence firm Kepler. From what we understand, the other vessels listed here have actually turned around and started to leave the area, so that way they can't come under a possible stop and seizure at the moment, from at least what Bloomberg was reporting earlier in the day. But at this moment, we still understand that the Bella is steaming at slow speed towards Venezuela, and from what we understand, according to all given information that we have right now, this pursuit is still ongoing. A lot of people have actually been talking about what's going to be happening here in the near future, as there's 2 options that the United States of America can take to try and bring this pursuit to an end. Either they call off the pursuit, which allows the ship to get into Venezuelan waters and effectively completely breaks our blockade at that point, as it will now show that the United States of America has no real will or ability to follow through with enforcing its blockade, or we are going to fire upon this vessel to force it to stop, and then board the vessel after we've caused significant damage to its engine room or propulsion systems to be able to bring the ship to a stop to where we can board it and then possibly seize the vessel. One of those options is going to be taken at some point in the future. We're not really sure which. Or there is a third option. The captain of this ship could finally bring the ship to a stop and allow the ship to be boarded, and then allow for the ship to be taken under U.S. control. A lot of people are actually weighing in their opinions right now as to what the United States might have to do, or what they think the United States is going to do as a result of this ongoing pursuit that is still going at 2.9 knots. Hey Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so now that we're seeing the U.S. today pursuing another oil tanker, this time it's not going according to plan. This vessel here, which according to what I've heard is allegedly Iranian linked in some way or another, is apparently speeding toward Venezuela and refusing to stop for the U.S. Coast Guard. So what are your thoughts? 51% said the U.S. will likely fire at the vessel or near the vessel very soon, while 24% said the U.S. will likely let it go, and 5% said Venezuela is likely going to protect the vessel and the U.S. might not intervene. So this one's a bit tricky because, for one, it seems like the Coast Guard, if they wanted to, they could likely board the vessel even with the vessel still moving. They could probably still do that. So the question is, why are they not doing that? So it's possible that maybe Venezuela has done what they claimed they were going to do, which is send out their navy to protect the vessel. That's possible. It could also be possible that maybe there's some type of fear that maybe there might be some resistance on board the ship to the Coast Guard boarding the vessel, and maybe they're holding off for that reason. Whatever the case is, this is certainly interesting, and it is going to test where the U.S. basically lies with a resolve with this blockade. So I'm not really sure. I'll be honest with you. I'm sort of half and half here. I'm actually with the 19%. I'm kind of unsure. I'm in between the U.S. Firing warning shots and also possibly letting it go. I'm not really sure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say that this absolutely well-maintained beauty will most likely eventually be seized by the United States. If we allow this ship to get on through our blockade without stopping it and seizing it and make it to a Venezuelan port, effectively at that point, the blockade has lost all of its value. Because to explain how this blockade is working at the moment, considering that we haven't fired on anyone yet, it is firing on the belief, well, it's really existing right now on the belief by a lot of countries that the U.S. is going to enforce the blockade. If we don't fire on the ship and forcibly stop the ship at some point and it actually makes it to a Venezuelan port, that ship has actually proven that our blockade is completely non-existent and only exists in name. The ship will be able to effectively break the blockade if we do not forcibly stop it at some point and seize it. So for this reason, we're pretty much forced right now that if we want this blockade to continue, we're either going to have to fire upon this vessel or conduct a seizure of the vessel while it is still underway. And I do have to say, folks, that the United States of America would love to have a tanker that is in this great of a condition. I mean, this thing is absolutely top-notch quality. Have y'all ever seen a ship that is this well off? I mean, hell, the Russian Navy, we thought that they had good ships. This ship right here, this is a notch above that even. You can even see the rust holes and the rust pitting within the area below the waterline. That is truly an impressive feature, and one that only comes with designer vessels. So we will definitely have to take this vessel under our control. And also, some people are saying that, well, we would like to have it filled with oil and then seize it. But here's the issue with that, folks. If we allow it to now pass, now that we've begun an active pursuit and have demanded for the ship to stop, and if we allow it to get to a Venezuela port, the blockade is over. Nobody is going to respect the blockade at that point, and we're either going to then have to take an extreme action of firing on every single ship that's attempting to pass through the blockade and forcibly stop them, which they probably will just ignore us at that point, because we've shown that if we ignore them, if they ignore us, they can just get on by and we won't even take them out or try and stop the vessel. Or we will have to just sit there and fire upon the vessel and stop it. That's really the only two options that we have. And if we fire upon the vessel and stop it, or we forcibly board the vessel while it's underway and then stop and seize the vessel, our blockade will remain in effect, either without us having to fire on the ship or with us firing on the ship. If the blockades remain in effect, we have to stop the ship before it makes it to a Venezuelan port. Still, I do see a lot of people talking about the condition of this vessel, and I do have to be honest with y'all. This thing is just quite rough altogether. This picture doesn't even have the ship in it. This is just a picture of the New York City skyline, which is quite interesting. Here's another picture of the vessel here. Here's another picture of the vessel as when it was called the Overseas Milan. We can also see another picture of it here. I gotta say, folks, they keep the ship up at high quality condition. I've never seen a ship this well off. Have you, Matthew?
It's honestly hideous looking. I'll be honest here. It's in really rough shape, at least according to the pictures. But, you know, the interesting part here is, at least according to the information that we currently have, which appears to be reported by the New York Times, based on what I'm seeing here on Twitter from AZ Intel, they're saying that apparently there was a seizure warrant that was obtained from a federal magistrate judge, which allowed the U.S. to take possession of the ship, according to two of the U.S. officials. And the warrant had been sought because of the bellow Venezuela one's previous involvement, alleged involvement, in the Iranian oil trade and not because of its links to Venezuela. So that's interesting right there. Once again, the U.S. has been alleging that Venezuela is serving as a conduit for Iran to basically launder money and also buy and sell oil against U.S. sanctions. So it appears to be, if the report is 100% accurate, that this is another vessel apparently that's doing that. And I'm not really sure, honestly, why the U.S. would be hesitating to stop the vessel unless they believe that maybe they're in harm's way if they decided to actually pull that off.
And also, something interesting that someone just pointed out in the chat is that this vessel's last reported position, which is right here at 2.9 knots, this was actually reported on the 17th of December as its last known location on Maritime Tracker. So this vessel has far moved beyond this area and is probably somewhere around the Venezuelan coast at the moment, like reports were stating from U.S. officials earlier today. So it does appear that this vessel has moved far beyond this location here, and it currently has actually met the U.S. naval blockade that's right outside of Venezuelan waters. So just to update that and share that information, because we always correct incorrect statements when they're made on air, and it appears that I'll have to eat my foot here on air because this vessel's last reported position was actually on the 17th. This is not an up-to-date position of this vessel, but it was seen heading towards Venezuela last reported. So with that in mind, I hope we were able to address that story somewhat well, at least for now, and we do see that the United States is still basing larger amounts of forces within this area at the moment, including around the area of the Roosevelt Roads Naval Air Station. We've now seen that the number of F-35s based at this airfield has now increased from 10 to 20. We do understand that a U.S. Marines squadron of F-35s, which amounted to 10, were within the area, and we're now seeing that that has increased to a whopping 20, which shows that another squadron has been brought into the area and is currently operating out of the Roosevelt Roads Naval Air Station. Interestingly enough, this picture was taken from a vantage point, which would give us a little bit of an idea as to exactly where these F-35s are. And if we were to try and take a good guess at where these F-35s were at the airbase, we'd actually assume that they're here on this pad. If you see this direction here, you can actually see the ramps, if you want to call them that, over here in the distance, which appears to line up. And you can also see what appears to be a former runway with a C-130 Hercules and a support building off to the left. We can see that support building actually right there. That appears to actually be what might have been the former airport tower, and we can see that all of the F-35s are generally stationed right here at the airfield. Some people are about to scream operational security, but anyone with two eyes could figure that one out. So not really operational security. If a picture's been published of it, you can see them all right there in one spot. One thing that's also quite interesting to note, however, is that some of these F-35s appear to have deployed some sort of a large antenna out of the top of their fuselage. Are you seeing that, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. It looks like a pole or something. Like, I'm not sure if that's an antenna, but that's strange though. Is that an anomaly in the picture or is that something else? So, like, are we seeing that right?
I think it may be an anomaly because this one's actually originating from the open canopy on this F-35, so I think this may be some sort of an anomaly added in post after the picture was taken. So I don't think that these are actually antennas that are protruding from the F-35. Because I was about to say, folks, I've never seen an F-35 do that, and I don't know why an F-35 would do that, but that is quite interesting. Someone actually said that it's actually lightning rods, which would make a decent explanation. Let me go pull that up. F-35 lightning rod. Let's take a look at that. So let's see here. Yeah, these actually do exist. These are actually lightning rods that have been equipped on board the F-35s.
Interesting. I didn't know they did that, honestly. That's an interesting thing. I've never seen that before in a picture.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Big thanks to everyone who said that it was a lightning rod, because that should have been an obvious answer considering that they're in the tropics where there are a lot of thunderstorms and tropical storms. But for some reason, that just didn't cross my mind, and I just assumed that it was some sort of a antenna or some sort of a picture anomaly. But that actually appears to be equipped lightning rods on board these F-35s, so that way, if they're ever struck by lightning, it doesn't start to fry the electrical systems, considering that the aircraft are on the ground at the moment. So, very interesting sort of a thing to know, and a lot of people are actually teaching the entire chat about a new bit of preventative technology that stops these F-35s from getting directly hit by a lightning strike. That's actually very cool to see that. But anyways, we've also been able to hear that further on north and in Florida, or as us from the south call it, Florida, we have been able to hear that at MacDill Air Force Base, there is an increased number of KC-135 and KC-46 tankers that are operating out of MacDill. According to SA Defensa, they have stated that we have an update from MacDill Air Force Base tanker counters, which now now is a total of 28 tankers deployed at the base. Back in October, I had identified 15 units deployed at the base, the pair of E3s, and this is a significant jump in units. As a matter of fact, this is almost an increase by a factor of 2 by the amount of available tankers that are at this base. Tankers allow for increased loiter time by the U.S. Air Force's multi-role assets, along with the United States Marines and the United States Navy, that are currently operating near to the area of Roosevelt Roads, out of the Gerald R. Ford Strike Group, or generally out of Florida entirely. These tankers are wildly important in sustaining and supporting larger operations, and considering that 28 tankers have been moved into the area, it's still showing us that Southcom is building up and preparing for some sort of a larger air operation that we have not seen yet. Most air operations that we know of right now that happen off the coast of Venezuela can largely be sustained or supported directly by the Ford, or could be sustained and supported by only 1 or 2 aerial tankers. The fact that they have 28 of them at MacDill alone, and possibly a larger number of them at Roosevelt Roads, is suggesting to us that they are preparing for a massive aircraft to be airborne at some point in the future, which is once again moving on towards the idea that strikes eventually have to happen. It's just that we never know when. The president is always saying that we're about to bomb Venezuela tomorrow, but then about another month will pass and we still haven't bombed them. And this is leading a lot of people to wonder, why in the world are so many assets being built up within this area, not only from the Marines, but from the Air Force and the Navy, and we keep seeing the number growing and expanding, yet the United States government, and specifically the office of the president, will never dedicate to any form of an attack against Venezuela? And Matthew, what are people thinking about? Well, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So I will admit, it is very impressive to see that much firepower, that is aerial firepower, just sitting right there, right outside of Venezuela. Even though I'm not really sure what the U.S. is doing exactly right now, and I'm not sure if they're exactly sure what they're doing either, it is impressive to see a lot of F-35s and a lot of other aircraft lurking around the area. So now that we're seeing the U.S. continue to amass this Air Force assets near the area, there's really been no real commitment to attack outside of just sort of blanket statements saying that attacks are coming, quote unquote, soon. So why is there a delay? Because it's been a very long delay. The assets have been in place and no attack has occurred. So why is that? 47% said the U.S. cannot justify the attack, while 20% said they were unsure, and 18% said the U.S. is scared of China and Russia's response and they're hesitating, and 15% said the U.S. simply got cold feet about it, they had buyer's remorse, and now they are sort of panicking. So I would say personally, I think the U.S. is having a hard time justifying the attack. We did see yesterday that apparently the War Powers Resolution that Congress was trying to pass to prevent the president from launching these strikes apparently failed in the Congress. So it made it a lot easier for the president to follow through with this plan to attack Venezuela. But yet, even at that, we've still not seen the attack take place, which is interesting. So I'm beginning to wonder if maybe there's some hesitancy about maybe some type of backlash after this breaks out, that maybe there wasn't proper justification for it, and maybe they're hesitating for that reason. So that's my best guess, and that's just a guess, because I'll be honest with you, we've deployed so many assets there, and we keep deploying even more. It's kind of hard to believe why we haven't attacked yet, but I'm with the 47%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to be with the 47% as well. I don't really believe that the U.S. can justify the attack, at least on the home front, because I don't really think a lot of people are going to be in support or are in support of the current actions that the United States is going to take. In short, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense from the way that it's being explained to the public on a load of levels. The United States has explained away or tried to justify this conflict in every single way, but the one that would make the most sense, and the one that I would say is really the only justifiable reason we should be going down there, which is to curb Chinese influence in the Americas. I don't know why we're not putting it that way, because that is really the only reason that we would ever have anything to do with beating up the Venezuelans and going into their country. But for some reason, we keep on going along with one line, which is, they're peddling drugs, and specifically fentanyl, into the United States, which generally isn't even the case, as the two largest cartels that are pretty much entirely involved in that are inside of Mexico, not inside of Venezuela, from what we understand. They are involved in the shipment of narcotics to the United States, as that is the end market, but still not fentanyl. That's mostly inside of Mexico by the two major cartels within Mexico. So that one didn't really seem to have a great deal of justification at the moment. The second one that we've heard now that the U.S. is moving on to is that the Venezuelans are stealing American oil, and for that reason, we want to go to war over the oil. which doesn't really seem to be catching on with the public either, because the public doesn't really like the idea of fighting wars over oil. Although I will say, on the flip side, the public also hates rising prices of gas, which makes no sense because they never want to fight for the oil, but at the same time they complain when the prices go up because no one's wanting to go and fight for oil. So I don't like, I won't even get into the lack of sense in that. But outside of that, that's also not really catching on with the public. So right now, I guess we're trying to see if the public would be in larger support of it, because I will say this, folks, if the U.S., like, I don't mean to get into domestic politics, but this actually kind of weighs into this a little bit. If the president decides to go forward with conducting military actions against Venezuela and they turn out poorly, this could be wildly unpopular with the U.S. public and sacrifice his entire political party's ability to win the midterms that are coming up here soon, and could end up disastrously. So that also is something in consideration as well. But we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment. Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we're getting some breaking news right now. Speaking of the devil, we might have a foreign policy announcement coming out of the United States tomorrow around 3:30 p.m., or actually 4:30, that is. It looks like the President of the United States will make a joint announcement with the Secretary of War and Secretary of the Navy 1 hour after a classified, or apparently, I think it may be a classified intelligence briefing, one or the other. It's an intelligence briefing taking place tomorrow at 3:30 p.m., and it looks like the President will make an imminent announcement about something involving the Secretary of War. So naturally, that will likely be a foreign policy announcement, which could have something to do with Iran, because that's currently an ongoing thing right now. It could have something to do with Venezuela that we're currently talking about. We're just not entirely sure just yet. But it will be a big announcement, we're told, by the president. So we'll have to wait and see. I'll be honest with you, the last two big announcements turned out to be nothing burgers. So we'll have to see if this one turns out to be something. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'll be honest with you, I don't really have high hopes. I would expect, just hearing this off the bat, they're probably going to come out, considering that this involves the Secretary of the Navy, and announce a blockade against Venezuela, which is already in effect at the moment. So it's probably just going to be a public statement of a blockade that's already happening. I would assume that's probably what's going to be, because the fact that the Secretary of the Navy is going to be joining them really leads me to believe that this will be some form of a naval operation at the end of it all, which really would only affect Venezuela at the moment. So it kind of narrows it down. If the Secretary of Navy is involved, it's probably just going to be an announcement of an official blockade. So that might be
I think they've already announced that, though. I think he already pretty much announced a blockade before in his last speech that he came out and did. My guess is this, and this is wild guesses, folks. This is just speculation in case people were curious what I thought about it. I would say likely it's the announcement of maybe seizing the vessel that we heard was on the run today. It could be that. That could be something. Or it could be maybe announcing like heavier Iranian involvement in the Venezuela situation, and maybe that'll be used as some type of justification to take military action against Iran over in the Middle East. It could be something like that. So the fact that the Secretary of the Navy is involved leads me to believe that it likely has something to do with Venezuela, considering the Navy has 20% of their assets deployed on the coast right now. So me personally, even though the last two announcements were nothing burgers, I would say this one here might be a big announcement, considering that the Secretary of War and Navy are going to be there at this announcement.
It might be a big announcement, but still, a lot of people have been, waiting on bated breath for a big announcement over the past two times, and they've turned into absolutely nothing. So I'll be honest, like my thoughts of this being a big deal, it's quite low, just because the past two were not big at all. It was basically nothing. So this might also be nothing as well, but we'll have to see. We'll just have to wait until tomorrow and find out what it is. And if anything big does come out of it, folks, we will be making a short war video to cover the major developments that will be happening, possibly tomorrow if a major announcement is made or if major actions begin. But just to be upfront with y'all, it's pretty decently unlikely, in my opinion, that anything big's going to be happening. If something big does happen, I'll be shocked and I'll be wrong, but, the last two major announcements were nothing. So, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least to the best of, as I would know at the moment, concerning the breaking news. But I also understand that a decent amount of people are actually talking about what they think it's going to be. I would say that generally it's probably just going to be an announcement of some major success, or there's great things going on. I have a feeling that, getting back to what I was saying a second ago before we got into the breaking news, it's probably not going to be an announcement of war, because the thing is that it's just a few days before Christmas. This would be wildly unpopular at this point to start a war with Venezuela right before Christmas, and meaning that our soldiers are going to be fighting over Christmas itself, which would probably be pretty unpopular with the public. And secondly, like we were saying a second ago, the United States really can't find a good justification, from what we would know, to really start this thing that the public seems to be accepting. And the public is a monster in itself when it comes to liking and disliking stuff. And considering that the United States of America is currently embroiled in what can only be described as a political scandal over the files currently, and a lot of people are saying that the current administration may be trying to find something to distract everyone off of this from, the possibility of starting a war right before Christmas that looks like it's trying to distract from that, and also the fact that the public may not even be on board at all with going to war with Venezuela, at least for now, might be a cumulative recipe for absolute disaster. So I would say they might not be announcing that tomorrow. They might announce that it's just some sort of an official blockade, possibly, and that would be about it. So with that, we are going to be moving on from this news in the Caribbean, and we are going to be moving on and out and into the area of Rossiyski Federacji, or more so, the Middle East. We're going to be moving on into the Middle East, actually, and covering the news out of the Denmark Strait here in a little bit. I was thinking we probably cover it, considering that it's maritime news, but we, generally will probably just keep that for the European-Ukraine news. But moving on from that and on into the Middle East, we have been able to hear that there is apparently still ongoing developments within this area between Israel and Iran, as developments have come out at the moment from the Islamic Republic of Iran, not only showing that they're starting the larger production of short-range ballistic missiles, but they are apparently also constructing a military airbase within Kerman. This airbase had actually been put on hold as far as construction for some time, and now appears to be getting on into more rapid construction at the moment, as the Islamic Republic of Iran may be preparing for some form of military actions against the state of Israel, at least from what we know at the moment, or larger military actions within the region. Additionally, we have also been able to hear that within the state of Israel, there is currently a great deal of talk about them becoming increasingly concerned about a possible preemptive attack by the Islamic Republic of Iran against the state of Israel. We do understand that they are currently talking about that a significant deal, and apparently have also confided in the United States of America today about that development. According to information from multiple Israeli news sources, the President of the United States has apparently given no approval for the Israelis to conduct attacks to beat the Iranians to the punch and to hit the Iranians before the Iranians can hit the state of Israel. We do understand from prior information yesterday there was a significant amount of news and developments that came out of unusual activities that were being reported by Israeli intelligence of the IRGC's aerospace forces within the western area of the country, and also near to the city of Shahrud there was a larger manufacturing of short-range ballistic missiles and missile boosters that were also being seen around that area, with some reports even suggesting that Iran could produce up to 3,000 missiles a month at maximum production rates within the next few months after this period right now. This is giving us at least a concept at the moment that while the Islamic Republic of Iran is currently dealing with a small uprising within the southeast, which they're still dealing with, which we believe is generally a Balochistan uprising, and while they're also dealing with a water crisis that's affecting around 11 million people within the area around the capital of Tehran, they still appear to be pushing for some sort of a warlike posture, or possibly an aggressive action against U.S. allies within the area, or specifically the state of Israel itself. This is, once again, a fairly strenuous incident, and hopefully we'll be able to have a question asked about that here in a moment to all of y'all to see what y'all are thinking about that here at this moment. Still, it is quite a serious situation, and we're going to be trying to get a little bit more developments and information on it. But Matthew, do you have anything to add about the situation at the moment?
Oh, well, right now I'm actually writing up that poll question about it right here, so it'll be out in just a second.
All right, and so we're going to hopefully try and get a little bit more information about that at the moment, but to try and explain the situation as we're seeing it right now, the Islamic Republic of Iran, at least according to Israeli information, is currently dealing with what appears to be unusual movements within the Islamic Republic of Iran within the western area of the country. These movements are generally unusual, as the IRGC aerospace forces do not conduct larger or broader maneuvers within western Iran unless if it's preceding some form of an attack. This is the intelligence that the Israelis are using to say that the Iranians are about to attack them, and for that reason, the Israelis should go ahead and preemptively strike Iran first. One thing that we don't really know about, however, at least as far as intelligence is concerned, is how many transport erector launchers are operational within the Islamic Republic of Iran that can fire any array of rockets or missiles towards the state of Israel. while the Iranians can produce 3,000 missiles a month, if we were even to take that number at face value, they may have a very limited number of short-range ballistic missiles at the moment. It may only be something around 100 or less. That means that in any volley, they would only be able to fire off 100 at the start, and reloading those TELs is somewhat complex and complicated as well, and does take time. And also, these vehicles have to move from their firing position to a reloading position to reload, and then they have to drive to another pre-prepared firing location. That all takes time. It means that the rate of fire would still be largely lower than the amount of 3,000 per month. It's easy to make bullets, but building the guns to fire those bullets is a little bit more of a difficult and complicated process. It does appear that a lot of people at the moment are actually weighing in their opinion right now on what is going on with this situation and what in the world the state of Israel is achieving or trying to achieve by the statements that have been made recently by the Israelis, which were asking for approval from the United States to conduct preemptive strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Also, by the way, real quick, I want to give a huge shout out to the folks donating to the fundraiser. We're currently up to $833 raised of the $2,500 goal. So we are making fantastic progress, by the way. I just want to give a huge shout out to that. And also, by the way, if you are throwing in a donation above $50, we'll be calling you off in the mid part of the stream, and then the rest of the donors above the $50, of course, at the end of the stream. So just want to give a huge shout out, by the way. And also, if you want to support Ukraine through Nova Ukraine, you can donate right there below the little text box right there. So very, very nice. But anyways, jumping back into our poll here, the poll says, after Israel warned about new attacks on Israel by Iran apparently coming up soon, the U.S. allegedly rejected the attack plans that Israel had on Iran. And what are your thoughts? 38% said Israel is trying to stir up trouble, while 34% said Israel is just trying to defend, and 20% said it seems like the USA is being difficult. So this one's a bit tricky because I feel like I'm saying that about all the polls tonight, but honestly, it is a bit tricky. We have seen on the satellite footage that Iran is ramping up dramatically their missile production, which is obviously never a good sign. And we've also seen that they're rebuilding Pickaxe Mountain and also several other nuclear sites inside of Iran. So that's not good. That's a bad indicator that Iran's preparing for new provocations, which would seem to support the idea that Israel might be about to be attacked by the Iranian regime yet again. But the problem is, though, is it seems like the United States is not buying that. They are rejecting the attack plans that Israel has told the U.S. about, and they're telling Israel not to attack Iran again, which seems a bit interesting considering the fact that the U.S. really didn't finish the job the last time they were inside of Iran with those nuclear sites. So I would say personally, I don't think Israel's trying to stir up trouble necessarily. Of course, they are a bit trigger happy from time to time, but I would say in this instance right here, Iran is a loose end when it comes to the threat that Iran poses. And I think Israel is just trying to defend. I'm actually with the 34%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's, I would generally probably be along the lines of the 34%. And also there's a lot of other nuance that goes into this as well, at least at the moment with how we have to deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Even if the Israelis are making up the intelligence to stir up trouble, which even if that was the case, we generally still have to deal with Iran, and that's more so the important thing here. So any justification would be a good one for the U.S. to get involved in. The Islamic Republic of Iran, from what we understand, is still working on an intercontinental ballistic missile program and has been able to develop, after the 12-day war, another intermediate range missile with a longer range that is getting closer to being an ICBM. As a matter of fact, that IRBM is basically an ICBM and is actually able to threaten the eastern seaboard, at least at the moment, within the New England area. Considering that, we do know that they're still working on producing an ICBM, which is a strategic weapon that can threaten the United States of America directly. Additionally, they are still working on their nuclear weapons program, from what we understand as well, and that is, once again, a significant threat to the United States. While a lot of people look at it as the Iranians only being a regional threat to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and other Arabian states that generally do not align either religiously or ideologically with the Islamic Republic of Iran, along with the State of Israel, the Islamic Republic of Iran is producing an intercontinental ballistic missile not to threaten the Middle Eastern states, but to threaten the United States of America. And the using or the deployment of a nuclear weapon on one of those ICBMs would once again only be used against the United States of America, meaning that this is a ultimate strategic threat to the United States of America that the Islamic Republic of Iran is currently conducting at the moment. For that reason, even if the Israelis were making up the intelligence, it is a generally good point to go in there and help out the Israelis. In quotation marks, help the Israelis in dealing with the Iranians, because not only are we generally securing Israel's interests in the region, but more primarily, we're stopping the Islamic Republic of Iran from conducting any form of a future nuclear attack against the United States, or putting us under the threat of strategic nuclear exchanges on a day-to-day basis because of our actions inside the Middle East. So either way, whether you go with the 34% or the 37%, I would have to say that the United States of America generally should support the action, or if we don't support this action, within the very near future, we should restart further military actions against the Islamic Republic of Iran to ensure the destruction of their nuclear research and development capabilities, along with the development of their intercontinental ballistic missile programs. So that would be...
Truthfully, I'm having a hard time believing that the U.S. actually rejected Israel's attack plans, because why would the U.S. object to Israel? And according to what we've heard, it's Israel briefing the United States on their own attacks they're going to conduct on Iran. So we don't believe currently that Israel's asking the U.S. to get involved in these attacks, at least according to what we've heard. So I'm having a hard time understanding why the U.S. would reject Israel's attack plans, considering the fact that we've already agreed with Israel that Iran is a major threat to the region, and their nuclear program is kickstarting again. And not only that, but their ballistic missile production is ramping up. We've seen that on satellite footage. So I'm questioning the report a little bit, folks. I'll be honest with you. I'm having a little bit of a hard time believing the report, because for the U.S. to say blatantly no to Israel, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't seen that over pretty much anything recently. So I'm questioning that report a little bit.
And it's possible. That's what we heard from at least Israeli news sources that state that they had information leaked to them from the Israeli government. So that's really the only information that we have at the moment to go off of what the U.S. position is. And on top of that, the U.S. does try and lean in from time to time. The prior administration did, and the current one did, on whether or not the Israelis can conduct certain kinds of attacks. It was the United States that did chastise and generally even admonish the Israelis for their attack against Doha and Qatar, which was conducted several months ago. So the U.S. does weigh in sometimes from time to time on what the Israelis can and can't do, and considering that the United States has stated that we brought peace between these two countries, it would really kind of break the entire story on that, or at least the current running statements that have been made. If the Israelis start to bomb the Iranians again, then it will look like a peace wasn't upheld, and that the region has once again devolved right back into war. Although the honest truth is that the war between the two has never stopped. It's been more so put on hold, at least at the moment. So that may also be another reason as to why the United States might be saying that, if they did say that. But I would generally say, folks, that this is a quite serious situation. And I see the age-old the question being asked again by a lot of people: why in the world is Iran our problem? And I don't really, I gotta say, I don't really know why people ask that question, because Iran isn't a threat to Israel. Iran is a threat to us. And to put this into perspective again, like we were on Venezuela and other situations, people don't like the idea of fighting a war over oil, but the reason why we fight wars over oil is so that way we can try and keep the prices of oil and gas low within the United States of America. We control the oil that flows out of the Middle East, and we generally get a say. Not really OPEC, but we more so get a say on where that oil goes, because most of the OPEC countries within the Middle East, if not all of them, actually fall under the control of the U.S. security assurance sphere within that area. Because of that, we have pretty much indomitable control over that region and its oil resources. When that oil gets shipped to the United States, we're able to ensure that we have a massive volume of it to pull from, and that keeps the prices of oil and gas here in the United States low. If you think that the price at the pump is incredibly important, then you actually are, in a sense, supporting us continuing to go to war and fight over the control of oil. As a matter of fact, every country around the world does. They would be fighting over the control of the Middle East right now. The United States wasn't there at the moment, and the Chinese would definitely slip in right behind us and take control of that oil if they could, considering that China has to import the lion's share of the oil that they consume within their country every day. This is a strategic asset for us to control that gives us a great deal of leverage, especially over our largest rival in the world right now, which is the People's Republic of China. Because of this, the Islamic Republic of Iran and their potential development of a nuclear weapon, even if it could not reach the United States, is a significant threat to us within that area. If the Islamic Republic of of Iran makes a nuclear weapon and they don't like what we're doing within the area, they can do what North Korea does, considering that they're going to be a nuclear-armed rogue state, and just threaten to nuke us or one of our allies in the area if we don't back off and at least compromise on their demands and give them half of what they want every single time they force that situation. And it's not just the Israelis that they would nuke, folks. Everyone thinks that Iran only has a problem with Israel, and everyone hates Israel within the area of the Middle East. While a lot of countries dislike Israel within the Middle East, a lot of them are also within the same American security assurance sphere, and also have a great deal of issues with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Saudi Arabia is primarily the #1 country outside of Israel that has a bone to pick with the Iranians. If that is the case, the Iranians could threaten to nuke Saudi Arabia, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, or Oman, which are all generally American-aligned, and even Iraq. And through that threat, they could get us to back off because our allies in the area are going to be begging us, please back off. And wait a minute, we hit the goal!
Hey, let's go! The goal's been smashed. Look at that. Honestly, folks, I'll be honest with you. I have no idea how it jumped up to 2,000 that quick. Whoever threw in that massive donation, by the way, like, please let us know who you are so we can give you your credit for that. It did not show across the dashboard. The number just jumped up to 2,000. We don't know even how it did that, but it's literally sitting there now. So we are $17 above the goal right now. A big yeehaw for that.
Man, that is absolutely crazy. We hit $2.5 thousand, folks, in 55 minutes since this show has started. Absolutely unbelievable and truly amazing to see. A humongous shout out to the Lee Spring Army once again, because y'all are always slamming the fundraiser goals. Who in the world it was, we don't know, but someone has absolutely blown this fundraiser away and got it up to the $2.5 thousand goal, along with everyone else who has been publicly supporting this fundraiser tonight. And a huge shout out to all of y'all, and we're about to be calling out the top donors here in just a little bit. But still, getting back to our analysis within the Middle East, that is why Iran threatens our situation within the Middle East, even if the nuclear weapon can't reach the United States. If they develop an ICBM and then mount a nuclear warhead on top of that, and that nuclear warhead can reach the United States, at least for our American viewers in particular, they could directly kill you if we get into a disagreement with them over anything in the world. They could fire a nuclear weapon at us and kill us directly. And that is a significant national security threat. Not just is that a significant national security threat, but due to the fact that they could use a nuclear weapon against us or our allies in the Middle East, that is a significantly scary and serious issue. And that's why Iran is an imminent threat to the United States of America. And to be entirely honest with y'all, as far as our list of priorities go, barring the problems that the Israelis have with the Iranians, Iran is America's #1 national security threat currently, because they could become a nuclear-armed rogue state, which would be an absolutely abhorrent situation for us and our strategic position within the Middle East. So with that,
Yeah. Honestly, I'm confused. Like, I think it may be bots saying this, because I think the most people that have been following the Iran situation would agree with this. That Iran, and here's what I'm seeing in the chat, by the way. This is what's making me say this. I'm seeing like a handful of people say, "Are you crazy? Iran doesn't want war with the United States." Well, I can defeat that argument with one simple fact. Iran sits there chanting in their government, "Death to America." So, I mean, if that's not like a dead giveaway that they want to go to war and destroy the United States if they have the capability, that's a pretty dead giveaway there. So, I mean, obviously Iran has bad intentions. In my personal opinion, I've said this for a while, I think Iran's government, being as radical as it is more radical than the North Korean government, which is already radical enough, and they have nukes. Like, the North Koreans already have nukes. But also, man, look at these donations coming in.
Holy moly, man. You sat there and started your monologue. I was like, oh my God. Dude, just right there in between James Hughes and Hal Rose, $733 just came into the fundraiser. I mean, holy moly. That's unreal. We just got up to 3.5 right there.
That's crazy, honestly. That's bonkers. That's crazy work, honestly. I was sitting there talking, I was like, what the hell's going on? Look at that.
Man, I was sitting there, I was like, dang. But still, absolutely amazing sport. And I would have to agree with Enforcer Matt on that. They do pose a significant national security risk within the area. And also, Matthew, I got to say, Matthew, that some of these people are like, let's see here. Some of these people who are saying this sort of stuff, they have names like Abu, and like, I just got to be entirely honest with y'all. If I see a name come in the chat and they're saying things that are against America's interests, and it appears that their name generally would have an origin within a Central Asian country or near to the Islamic Republic of Iran, it's like, okay, that's obviously a bot or someone that has an invested interest in a pro-Iranian cause. Like, it doesn't really take
Well, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it's just I don't understand the argument. Like I just don't understand the argument itself. It's like I mentioned, it's as simple as saying this that Iran's literally chanting death to America. So and people are going to accuse like this all the time. People always go around accusing this. They say, "Oh, you guys are shilling for Israel." We've called out Israel, by the way, in the past when they've done things that have not been exactly above board, and they have done things that have not been above board. We've made that perfectly clear before. But there are things that are shared Israeli and U.S. interest. And Iran is one of those. Iran is a sworn enemy of the United States. And if they get their hands on nukes, and it's possible because North Korea did it, Iran can definitely attempt to get it done. And they've been trying to get it done very fast over the last couple of months. Then we'd be in some deep trouble. So that's a shared interest between Israel and the United States. That's not warmongering. That's just common sense.
Also, folks, here's another thing. Like, I'm not even going to take any statements that we're Israeli shills. I literally railed against them last night and how most every other country in the Middle East, in my opinion, is a better strategic ally than the Israelis currently. And they'd either have to change their ways or we might have to renegotiate our position with the Israelis strategically in the near future. So quite clearly, we're not Israeli shills because I wouldn't be sitting there and criticizing the current strategic situation that we have with the Israelis last night, literally just last night, if we were just completely pro-Israel. I'll be entirely honest with y'all. As far as the strategic position with this, I'll just be upfront with y'all. I'm an American citizen. I really don't care about the nuclear threat or even the conventional threat that the Iranians pose to the Israelis when I come up with this sort of a problem-solving equation here. Truth be told, Israel doesn't produce a lot of oil, and on top of that, they don't allow our forces to be based in the region. So as far as the strategic analysis there, while we both have a common interest in going up against Iran, because Iran is both sworn enemies of the Republic and the State of Israel, that's not really where my priorities lie. My priorities lie within the oil-producing countries of the region, like Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman. That's really where the loyalties lie, because one, all of those countries, pretty much every single one of them, barred none, allows U.S. forces to be based within their nations. This allows us power projection abilities within the area, which is crucially important. Secondly, we also get dibs on their oil, which is incredibly important to the U.S. economy. So when you look at it that way, it's not really more so for the threat that the Iranians are posing to the Israelis, it's more so that the Iranians are posing a threat to our bottom line here in the United States of America, which is those oil imports that we quite significantly count on from the Middle East. And not only that, it's the fact that the Iranians could also start to directly attack and kill millions of Americans with the nuclear weapons of mass destruction that they are still working on developing and producing. So if the Israelis want to go ahead and have a once-over on them again, I don't really see that much of an issue with it, to be entirely honest with y'all. They're kind of softening them up before we have to return back to the situation and deal with it. But we also have to deal with this as well, because you can't sell out our foreign policy interests and national security concerns to other countries to do our bidding. That's how you end up with half-baked conclusions that more so interest them than us, and then we still end up the creek without a paddle later on in the future. We have to deal with this whole deal. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a pretty horrific situation, considering that it's going to be another North Korea. Y'all know that North Korea deadlocks us right now within East Asia at the moment, especially on anything dealing with South Korea on a strategic sense, because they can threaten to just nuke Japan or South Korea, and because of that, the South Koreans and Japanese governments will go, please, for the love of God, back off, because we don't want to deal with this, and we really have no way to defend against that. And then we have to go, okay, we have to back off a little bit, because everyone's getting scared the North Koreans are about to try and kill everyone. And the Iranians will do the same.
That is so bad. That is so bad, because North Korea is not a major power. That's the problem. North Korea was never a major power, but because they got their hands on nuclear weapons, they became not a world power necessarily, but they became a very big power player in the region. And it's a very rogue force that became a power player. So that was awful. That's awful that North Korea was allowed to get nuclear weapons. And that serves as a perfect case study for why Iran can never be allowed to get nuclear weapons. We can't have that same mistake repeated again. If we could go back and probably fix the North Korea situation, I think the USA would have done stuff differently and stopped them from getting them at all costs if we'd have seen what happened in the modern day. North Korea is holding everybody hostage in the region, basically. And if Iran gets nukes, they'll be doing the exact same thing, even probably worse.
Yeah, they definitely will be. And also, on top of that, folks, North Korea, as far as their domestic situation, is far more stable due to their iron fist rule than the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Islamic Republic of Iran also has an iron fist rule, but it's never been successfully implemented nationwide, which means that they're in an even far more unstable situation than even North Korea, which is honestly shocking to say, but that's the reality of it. So do we want a country, looking at how unstable North Korea is and how dangerous they are as a loose cannon with their nuclear weapons. Well, we want a country even more unstable than that in the Middle East, right near to all of the oil-producing countries that we have major relations with, to be nuclear-armed and wield those like a loose cannon as well. That's a far worse position even than what's going on with North Korea. That would not be a good situation at all. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, because this is obviously a major strategic security concern, along with the situation going on in Eastern Europe and also the one going on with China and Taiwan. We cannot allow any of these areas to weaken or fall, otherwise our entire sphere of influence is going to be crippled permanently from then on. So we cannot allow this. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And really quickly, folks, I wanted to address something earlier because I saw some comments that were said that some statements of mine may have been political, and I do want to explain really quickly why any statements were made that may have been construed as political. We were talking at the moment about a poll that was asking whether or not the United States had a proper justification or not to start a war with Venezuela, and my explanation is only delving into the internal situation within the United States of America that may impact the actual decision-making in foreign policy that would determine whether or not a war is starting, considering that that could become wildly unpopular and also have a direct impact on, say, the individuals or possible political institutions that are currently involved in pushing forward that conflict. It does weigh into the decision-making analysis and also the, I guess you could say, foreign policy plays that would be made, because this is one of the few times that we could see that such an action could weigh quite poorly on the domestic side in the United States of America, because it doesn't really appear, from what we can tell, by most polling out there, and really most answers and statements that have been made by the public in the United States, that a war with Venezuela would be entirely popular, although at this point, it's going to be pretty much necessary. There's really no other way that we can back out of this thing at the moment. But at the same time, that may also be the reason why the U.S. government is incredibly held up at the moment on conducting a war with Venezuela or not, is because while they now are forced to have to do something, or we basically walk away and we're defeated without even firing a shot, the U.S. public might consider that to be a wildly unpopular reaction, and that could have significant consequences for certain groups here on the home front who push forward that sort of a conflict. So that also may be what's stymieing the process at the moment and holding everything back. Just want to make sure that I make it clear those weren't supposed to be political comments trying to put a slight towards one group or the other, but more so addressing the current situation that we see, where this could have a very negative outcome if a decision to conduct military action against Venezuela is made. Although we're already seeing that there are massive buildups within the area that clearly are indicating that they are moving towards strikes, but they're still not striking even still. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, just to make sure that I get that out of the way, that those statements weren't supposed to be construed as political and were more so delving into the situation that would affect that larger topic that we were talking about. But with that in mind, folks, the fundraiser is currently at an unbelievable $3,770 raised.
Holy cow. Oh my goodness. Honestly, folks, I seriously have no idea. Did you see it jump up, though, Enforcer? Did you see it jump up like out of the blue, like in the middle of us talking earlier?
I actually didn't, because I have to flip over, folks, out of my control room to the actual live stream on YouTube on a different tab to see it. So I actually didn't see it. And when I saw you in the chat earlier going, who in the world throwing that massive donation? I was scrolling up through the chat. I was like, I think he's going crazy. I don't see anyone. And I just moved on.
Holy
I was like,
moly.
Dang!
You see that? Look at that. 2,000 Norwegian kroner coming in strong from
smokes.
Espen Turgenhagen. What in the world? Honestly, this thing has gone nuts in the last 20 minutes or so. It's gone crazy.
We have now made it to $3,967. We are only $33 away right now from $4,000 raised here on the channel for Nova Ukraine. Absolutely unbelievable. And actually, folks, before we get into the top donors tonight, I actually wanted to share with you all something that is quite interesting and incredibly neat, and we wanted to make sure to give it a shout out and see if we could get the Lee Spring Army working incredibly hard on this front as well. We have, of course, declared victory, as usual, this Sunday on the Sunday night fundraiser for Nova Ukraine. It was easy breezy, lemon squeezy, very easy to pull off, very easy for the Lee Spring Army to do. But tonight, folks, we actually have been given a request by an amazing group of folks that we've dealt with and worked with in the past, but we have actually been given a request to support another fundraiser of theirs that is absolutely incredible. And I'm actually going to tell you all how to support this, and it's the only time ever, folks, in history that this channel is actually supporting an out of YouTube Give fundraiser. And this fundraiser is none other than Merry Kidsmas, being run by United 24 itself. United 24 has actually reached out to us just today and has asked us if we would be willing to publicly endorse and support this fundraiser. And obviously our answer was yes. United 24 has done an unbelievably incredible amount of work, and not only that, has saved a significant amount of lives within Ukraine, and not only that, has done amazing work in general. Merry Kidsmas is a program that is attempting to raise $500,000 to be able to build bomb shelters and to improve the spaces that children are learning in the Kharkiv and Zaporizhia regions, which are of course right near to the active front line. This fundraiser is absolutely incredible in what it's trying to achieve and do. And of course, United 24 has an unbelievably incredible track record in helping to save lives in Ukraine, not only of children, but of the elderly and the innocents throughout the entirety of the country, and has been working overtime since the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, founded United 24 in the early part of the war in 2022 to be able to do as much as they humanly can on the humanitarian front. We have a link in the description currently. It's the very first link in our description that will bring you directly to this fundraiser landing page on United 24 and allow you to be able to support along with us. I'll actually be throwing in some support directly to this fundraiser after the stream ends. And also on top of that, I hope that the Lee Spring Army massively supports this fundraiser because it is an incredible one. As a matter of fact, I don't think that United 24, Matthew, would have that much of an issue with us playing the video that they have for their fundraiser. Do you think?
Honestly, I'm not really sure entirely because you know how it works with YouTube. Like sometimes it gets flagged anyway for copyright and stuff like that. But also, by the way, folks, just a note: we wanted to give this thing a shout out tonight because we're also we do recognize it's like double doing fundraisers on the same night. We already have the Nova Ukraine fundraiser running, but it's for all the folks out there, especially that say that they cannot donate due to unfortunately regulations in their country. Like for example, Australia that can't donate to the Nova Ukraine one here on YouTube. They can simply go donate to the one here on United 24's website, the Kidsmas one right here. And also, by the way, I do want to say, I'm not trying to like out United 24 or something like this, but they are having a bit of a harder time raising funds for this one. And that's unfortunate, of course, because this one is for the kids of Ukraine, that is. So if you'd like to donate to it, the link is in the description below to go to their website, or you can go directly to their website if you type in United 24 on Google as well. So a very good fundraiser, by the way, and hopefully they can hit their goal. They have a pretty lofty goal of about 500,000, 500,000, and they're currently at 135, and it looks like we're about 4 days from Christmas, if I have my numbers correct. So a bit of a short runway left on it, but hopefully they get the support they're looking for, and we're wishing the best for them.
Yeah, we wish the best for them, and it's an absolutely incredible fundraiser, and it's really good to know that United 24 directly requested our assistance in openly speaking about and supporting this fundraiser, so that way we can try and get some attention on it, and hopefully get some support thrown its way, so that way the Ukrainians can hopefully see that more kids this year will go without being bombed out by the Russians and quite literally killed within the streets of the cities that they are going to school in right now. So if you would like, the link is in the description. And also, folks, just to make sure that this is as easy as possible, because I see some people may have not been able to find it in the description, I'm actually going to be putting a link to it within the live chat right now. That is the link right there. If you click on the hyperlink that I just put in the live chat, it'll take you directly to this landing page on United 24. And if you click on the link, folks, from what we understand, it actually shows that you came from the Enforcer channel to go support the fundraiser, at least from what we understand. So if you would like to click on that link, it will actually let United 24 know that the Lee Spring Army is sending its regards like it has been for 1,397 days. So with that, I hope we were able to give the best shout out we can to this amazing fundraiser. But in the meantime, folks, we have an absolutely amazing shout out to give to all of the top donors of this stream tonight that have now been able to raise $4,235 for the fundraiser. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so calling off our top donors, then we're going to get to some live chat questions that you've thrown in tonight. Jumping into that list here, we had a massive $400 donation from James Hughes, and a huge shout out to James for throwing in that generous donation to the fundraiser, of course. Also, a big shout out to Hal Rose, who threw in a $333 donation, along with Gabby White, who did a $200, and Espen Turgenhagen, who threw in that $200 as well, along with Patrick Chapdelaine, who did a $100, also with Ken by 7X, and a $75 from Giggity, and a 50 from Snow White Sigant, as well as a 50 from Cliff H, Chef Danny B, Greg Carrier, as well as Mark Ead, Nightmare Before Christmas, Yanara Sokofor, and also George Guede. If I'm saying his name properly, hopefully I'm saying that right there. But a huge shout out to our top donors of the night, and also, like we always say, a huge shout out as well to all the other donors that threw in even the smaller amounts, because we would love to call off every single name, but we don't want to hold the folks up from the news too much because they might run off. But anyways, we appreciate every single person for throwing in that support, and Ukraine will definitely appreciate it, definitely 100%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, a humongous thanks to everyone who has massively supported this fundraiser tonight, because it is truly an incredible and wonderful thing to see. The Lee Spring Army is always ensuring that we not only surpass the fundraiser goals, but go well beyond them. That support is heavily appreciated inside of Ukraine by the nonprofits that we fundraise for, and it is able to help them save more lives than they would have otherwise if we didn't support them. Of course, thoughts and prayers are great, but money is what truly makes the world go round. And you can't generally mend a wound with thoughts and prayers, and you generally can't feed a child that's starving and also has been dislocated because their house was destroyed by thoughts and prayers either. All of that has to be done through hard cash, and the Lee Spring Army has fundraised over the course of the entirety of the war about $1.6 to $1.7 million in support of nonprofits, not only inside of Ukraine, but around the entirety of the world. It's truly an amazing and incredible thing, and we always have to give y'all a humongous thanks for helping to continue to see that the Lee Spring Army will never truly die, and that we will always see the perseverance of the Western world wherever it may be around the world. And so with that, it is time for us to get to a couple of questions before we get on into the rest of the news. And Matthew, we are going to be getting 3 live chat questions and then moving this thing on. So what do we got?
All right. And also, a real quick piece of breaking news here. We've just gotten word as well. This is in reference to the major announcement by the U.S. president tomorrow after he receives a classified intelligence briefing. Apparently, not only will the Secretary of War be there, also the Secretary of the Navy, and apparently the Secretary of State, Rubio, is also going to be attending as well. So it looks like basically all the individuals involved with foreign policy, the top dogs of the foreign policy U.S. Sphere, that is, are going to be there at this announcement, apparently happening at Mar-a-Lago, according to what we're hearing. So apparently it'll be a pretty big one. I'm not entirely sure what this is going to be. I'll be honest with you, my brain is going 100 miles an hour right now trying to figure out what this is. And of course, I think suspense is the name of the game at this point. But anyways, jumping into our first question here, this one's going to go to David Tablet. He said, I am hearing that 2 Venezuelan Navy ships were sunk today. Is that confirmed or a crock?
It sounds like whoever put out a crock, because we haven't been able to get any picture or video evidence or official statements that 2 Venezuelan vessels have been hit. So at the moment, I would say that we haven't heard of that. So whoever put that story out, I don't know who it was, but that sounds to be uncorroborated by anyone from what we would know at the moment. So with that, I hope that does address that well. But that is one hell of a statement. Now, honestly, that's like the train robbery stories that used to come out of Ukraine about 1.5 years ago, where the Ukrainian special forces would hijack a Russian train that happened to be carrying literally every single weapon that Ukraine would ever want to steal on one train, and then they take it out of Russia somehow and across the border. It's kind of like that story. So whoever was putting that out, they were generally trying to find themselves a good headliner today, but we didn't hear or confirm of that happening at all. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, folks, I see like a couple of people getting upset. And look, folks, I don't get into all the goofy naming conventions. If they're calling the guy the Secretary of War now, they're calling Hegseth the Secretary of War. Me personally, I find it cheesy, but if that's what they're calling him now, I'm just going to call him that. I mean, if you want to call him Secretary of Defense, I mean, it's a free country. Have at it. But you call him either one. I mean, it's fair game to me. But jumping into our next live chat question here, this one goes to none other than Bama FPV, who said, will Iran start seizing ships in the Black Sea now?
Iran seizing ships in the Black Sea?
That's the question.
No, Iran has no ability to seize ships in the Black Sea. It's too far away. So I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
All right, and this third question here is going to go to David Tablet. He said, is the Army involved in the buildup near Venezuela, like, for example, with airborne troops, etc.?
Not to a heavy degree from what we know. We do understand that the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment of the U.S. Army was spotted at Trinidad and Tobago about a week or a week and a half ago, but it appears to be operating off of the MV Ocean Trader or possibly operating out of Trinidad and Tobago itself. That is really the only Army unit that we have been able to confirm at the moment is operating inside of Southcom against the Venezuelans or near to the Venezuelans for now, but there's probably other units that have been moved into the area in more or less covered locations like Panama and Nicaragua and elsewhere. Well, not Nicaragua, but generally Central American countries that aren't really being talked about or reported on at the moment. So that's what we're understanding at the moment. Is that really the only one that we've seen is 160th SOAR, but we haven't really seen any other units of the U.S. Army within Southcom's command. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And I see that apparently the whole Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War thing is going on. I call him the Secretary of Defense, folks. I'll just give my piece on it. I call it the Secretary of Defense because you can pick either one. Technically, the Department of War and the Secretary of War are unofficial nicknames because the names of institutions that have been founded by congressional act can only be changed by the Congress themselves. By legal technicality, it's actually still the Secretary of Defense and the Department of Defense. That's still the official name. And if you look at any U.S. bill or act that is currently being voted on right now on the Senate or House floor that is talking about the Department of War or the Secretary or the Department of Defense, whichever you want to call it, it's actually still technically called the Department of Defense. So if you want to call it by its unofficial nicknames, it would be the Secretary of War and the Department of War. But if you want to call it by the congressionally approved name, which still is the legal standing name of both the Secretary and the actual department, it will be the Department of Defense and the Secretary of Defense. So you can really choose either one. It's just more so up to preference. I personally call everything by its official name. Many of y'all know that I'm a bit of a stickler for that. Like, I'll go and even say the Kingdom of Thailand and the Kingdom of Cambodia, although that's not necessary. So whenever I see an official name, which is still the Department of Defense and the Secretary of Defense, I use the legally official name instead of the unofficial nickname that the executive branch has given to that position and also to the department. So there's the difference.
I don't care what people call him, honestly. If people want to call him the Secretary of the Vikings, if people want to call him the Secretary of War, Defense, the Secretary of Nonsense, honestly, I could care less, really. That was the whole controversy with the whole renaming of Gulf of America to Gulf of Mexico or whatever. I'm like, honestly, to me, I get the fact it irritates people, but I could really care less. As long as we know what we're talking about and people understand the reference, that's all that's important to me.
And also on top of that, folks, another thing is that when it comes to names that I just knew growing up, when they renamed Fort Benning to Fort Moore, I still called it Fort Benning. When the Gulf of Mexico was renamed, I still called it the Gulf of Mexico. And when I was born and I was growing up in school, Mount McKinley was Mount McKinley. It hadn't been renamed to Denali yet. And so even when it was renamed to Denali, I still called it Mount McKinley. And then it was changed back to that name now. So I don't like, and people attach a lot of politicism to this stuff, but as far as official titles and departments go and nations go, I call them by their full official name. Whatever's the legal name, I call it off of that full on, and it's a standard. You can literally see that even with nations. And then when it comes to geographical locations, whatever it was called when I was born and I grew up knowing it as, I just still keep calling it that no matter what they changed the name to. So for me, the Gulf of Mexico is still the Gulf of Mexico. I will never call it the Gulf of America because I'm never going to be able to get it out of my head that that's actually the Gulf of Mexico. So
it's really the Gulf of Mexico.
No, no, it's the Gulf of Mexico. Like it's the Gulf of Mexico.
I'm just trying to get people triggered extra. That's all. We do a little bit of trolling around here from time to time. Honestly, I call it the Gulf of Mexico personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, and also I see someone saying the original name is Mount Denali. Yeah, but when I was growing up, it was called Mount McKinley. That's what that's what I'm going with. Whatever I was born with and whatever I heard growing up as a kid, that's what I'm going with. It's just not changing. Like nothing in my head is changing at all about that. Like Alabama, because when I was growing up, Alabama was and still is called the Heart of Dixie. If they change that to something else like the Heart of Blue Jazz, I'm still calling it the Heart of Dixie because that's what I grew up hearing. Like whatever anything's named, it's just staying that way. It's never changing. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, so we can get through the whole naming convention thing. Crazy enough, folks, my whole exploration into the reason why America probably isn't going to war with Venezuela yet didn't really get that much of a row. But apparently, Matthew calling it the Secretary of War got a row. I was like, I don't know how that works.
I said it. It's because I said it. It got people riled up. For some reason, why I said it, it got people hostile. They were coming at me over that. They were like, "What the hell are you talking about, Secretary of War?" I'm like, hey. I'm like, look. I'm just saying, folks. I'm just saying. They said he's the Secretary of War. They said the man's a tough man. They said he wears Gap shirts. I'm like, that's what they're saying. That's what they're telling me.
And also, folks, I just gotta explain this and just kind of be like upfront here and honest. I don't get like the whole political renaming of things, because back when the 2010s, basically every single military base in the South technically got renamed to something else, including Fort Benning, which is the biggest one in the Southeast near Alabama. And back then everyone was like, "Oh, this renaming is bullshit." And honestly, I was like, "Yeah, it is. It's really stupid. I don't really get it." So I just kept calling it Fort Benning, and everyone else did. And so I still have that mindset to this day. Renaming stuff for any sort of a political reason is just really stupid. So whatever it was, it is. Like, I don't care who in the world, from what political side, is renaming something. Whatever its name it is, it just sticks. Like, everyone, like everybody knows the Gulf of Mexico. Like, just honest truth. Everybody knew Fort Benning. Everybody who ever grew up in the South knew Fort Benning. Even if you didn't have anything to do with the military, you knew what Fort Benning was, and it was Fort Benning. Everyone knows that. No reason to change it. Just like the Gulf of Mexico. Every single person that has grown up here in the Southeast, and we live in Utah now, but we grew up down there, everyone called it the Gulf or the Gulf of Mexico. It was never the Gulf of America, and that was never a problem until the president just renamed it recently for reasons. And so I don't really get the whole political reasons of renaming anything, whether it's one side renaming Fort Benning or another side renaming the Gulf of Mexico. Both of those things are still what they were to me. I'm never changing the way I say them, and it's not for political reasons. It's just that I'm not going to be changing the entire way that I speak and name things because some political group now said it has a different name. That's like living in the Soviet Union, basically, if you're going to let an entire political party change the way that you call stuff just because of their own ideology or reasons. I don't subscribe to that at all. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Hey, Matthew, did we get that final question just to make sure?
We did, but also in the meantime, a big shout out to Evanescent Wave, who threw in a $120 donation and brought us up to over $4,400 raised on the fundraiser. Doing excellent on that fundraiser. That's crazy.
And I gotta say, that is absolutely insane. I mean, look at that. $4,417 raised. Truly, truly incredible. But with that in mind, folks, it is time for us to move on into all the rest of this news that we have tonight. So strap in, kids. It's getting crazy. We're moving on into the casino war. Thailand and Cambodia still going on to this day. It's not changing. It's not really stopping. It doesn't appear that the Cambodians accepted the Thai demands, by the way. The Thai laid out 4 days ago the requirements for Cambodia to enter a ceasefire. They would have to announce a ceasefire and a date. The Thai were going to allow the Cambodians to set the time and date that a ceasefire would go into a place, publicly announce it, and then enforce it once it went into effect. The Cambodians have not done any of that for 4 straight days, which is kind of showing us once again the Cambodians were trying to play that sort of foreign policy and diplomacy game to make it look like they were the victim in this whole deal, but it really looks like they want the war to get going again as well. In the meantime, significant actions have unfolded. The Thai are now firing their own MLRSs into the area of Cambodia.
បាទចេញពីខាងទិសព្រៃគុបបាទឲ្យខាងភូមិសាស្ត្រអូបេជន់ថ្ងៃទី22ខែធ្នូឆ្នាំ2025ផ្ទុះហើយបាទ
Oh, he's getting a little bit of a repeater on the radio or something. He's hearing his own self repeated back to him. That's some people say they hear voices in their head. He's hearing it right back over the radio.
Man, he's like, I can almost hear myself. He's like, dude, that's the radio. But also, we got to see this clip as well.
Oh, look.
Ôi trời ơi mà. Trời ơi à. Dù mơ không? Mai đo co. Trông đôi phay cho nè.
Well, that's clearly showing that the Thai are firing MLRSs into Cambodia now, along with their airstrikes. They're really laying down the works on the Cambodians. I also saw Rob Whittle ask, casino war? Good question. Why? That's a great question. The Thai have an absolute affinity for airstriking and obliterating casinos in Cambodia, to the point that it's basically one of the only things they actually blow up. And since the war has started, the Thai have blown up, from what we can count, at least over a dozen casinos inside of Cambodia, usually with the largest explosives that they have available that can be dropped from an F-16. So for that reason, while the first war was called the 7-Eleven War, because the Cambodians were targeting and hitting 7-Elevens within Thailand due to heavy MLRS fire, and that pretty much was basically the only thing that they were really hitting, the Thai, on the other hand, during this war, are hitting nothing but Cambodian casinos. So for that reason, we've dubbed this the Casino War, because there really appears to be battlefields that quickly rise and then fall around Cambodian casinos at this point. Moving on from there and on towards the border area, we also saw further intense firefights from the Cambodian side on Ta front. Let's take a gander. Oh, they had to rewind. Oh, this guy's actually shouldering the machine gun. This is an improvement. Oh, and then he got down and did a little scoop.
Man, that fear hit him quick.
Yeah, honestly. We now see him with what appears to be an M79 grenade launcher. Oh, actually, that's an underslung grenade launcher on an AK, sorry.
Yikes.
He's now firing at a high angle over the berm, not hitting anything at all. And that's the end of that clip. Moving on from that one, further down the border, we also got to see that apparently, folks, the Cambodians are getting equipped with FPV drones and also have a bit of Chinese equipment. Oh, we're going to mute that, heavens be. But there's the FPV. That is a fiber optic FPV, as a matter of fact.
That's a strange little thing to see there. An interesting piece of weaponry the Cambodians seem to have gotten their hands on. We haven't seen that until today, by the way. At least on camera, we haven't.
That guy looks miserable, by the way.
Hey, he looks, he's really in the dumps right now. Excuse me.
But this guy does have an FPV. Like, that's a first right there. And very telling, because we haven't seen the Cambodians have one of those until today. Meanwhile, we also saw that the Thai were conducting further strikes with their F-16s on Cambodian positions near to the area of, I believe, it's Ubon Ratchathani. Let me make sure of that. Yes, it is. It is Ubon Ratchathani. Well. Let's take a look at this clip.
កាលពីម្សិលមិញខ្ទង់ម៉ោង5ម៉ោង6ម៉ោង7វាឆ្វែល
Betrayal.
គ្រាប់នេះឥឡូវដាក់ហើយ2គ្រាប់មិញ F16 តាដ្រូនឆ្វែលហើយគឺចឹងឯងភ្លាមហ្នឹងឯង
Well, it does appear that the Thai are continuing to hit the Cambodians quite heavily, and it also appears that, at least at the moment, the Cambodians are getting access to new technology that we have not seen them using before, in the form of that FPV drone. And that's begging the question, what's going on with this new equipment, especially Chinese-made FPV drones that are starting to appear inside of Cambodia? Are the Chinese actively supplying and supporting Cambodia? Or is this more so the fact that the Cambodians are a little bit resourceful and somehow are able to get FPV drones from China somehow? Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so we just saw there in the footage that it appeared that Cambodian soldier was holding a China-made attack drone, an FPV drone that is. It appeared to be a fiber optic specifically in that newly seen footage. So in your opinion, what is happening with that? It looks like 73% said China is actively supplying the Cambodians now based on that footage, while about 11% said it seems suspicious, but they're not really sure, and 10% said Cambodia likely procured those independently of China. So I'll be honest on this one, folks. I'm going to say it again for the third time tonight. This one's a little bit tricky because here's the problem. China has interest in both Thailand and Cambodia. They tend to lean toward Cambodia for, I guess you could say, governmental reasons. They lean toward Cambodia. Thailand tends to lean to definitely Western, but they tend to have economic interest in both countries. So what China may be thinking, if they are supplying these to Cambodia, is the fact that Cambodia does not have an air force means that Thailand might decimate Cambodia, which would hurt their interest. interest. So they might be trying to level the playing field a little bit by supplying these attack drones. So that way Cambodia has a way to protect itself and keep the playing field somewhat level. So that way both countries don't destroy each other. That could be it. And that's my best guess, honestly, at this point. So Cambodia doesn't have really a lot of money to buy these drones. So I would guess that maybe China is giving them to them, but we're not really sure. We don't have concrete evidence of that yet. But the fact that they have a brand new one in their hands certainly isn't a good sign. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'd be with 73%. The Chinese are most likely actively supporting and assisting the Cambodians, considering that Cambodia is far more aligned with the People's Republic of China than Thailand, although Thailand is more economically significant. The Chinese are probably wanting to support the Cambodians because they may be afraid, considering that the Thai do have a relationship with the United States of America, that the United States by default may get involved and support the Thai, so their knee-jerk reaction is to go ahead and support the Cambodians with any form of equipment and arms that they have to spare, which may be the reason why we saw that FPV drone inside of Cambodia today. Moving us on, though, out of that news and generally back on and towards Europa, finally, we are going to be getting on into the major news that has come out of the war in Ukraine and a little bit of news that's come out of Europa today. And we're going to be getting on into all that news, starting up at the Strait of Denmark. Now, you know, a lot of people have been saying that the Strait of Denmark is something of an impressive sort of a location, considering that it's so straight. But I do have to tell you all that, unfortunately, the Strait of Denmark is bent. It actually goes north, and then it goes towards the southwest. That's not straight to me, and I think that's false advertising. Nevertheless, we did hear that the Swedish Navy today, within the bent of Denmark, has apparently boarded a Russian cargo ship called the Adler overnight after it anchored off Höganäs following an engine failure. That's a very big deal, folks, an engine failure. An engine failure.
What does that mean?
That's a magical form of propulsion, Matthew, where the Russians, as archaic as they are, use explosions held within a cylinder to be able to turn pistons, which then turn a crankshaft to be able to create propulsion. These engines are something new that they've created out of their raw violence and need for explosives and fire. And apparently the engine within this vehicle has failed.
Okay, you're saying engine. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
Man, you're not going to play along? Like, what the hell?
I legitimately did not know what you were saying at first. I was like, the engine. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? But I get what you're saying now. I get it.
I gotta say, though, the Russians are quite archaic using an engine. Here in the West, we use more advanced and civilized forms of propulsion, which we call engines. The Russians, they do not know of such systems. Nevertheless, the operation involved the Swedish Customs, the Coast Guard, police special units, and security services. Right now, they're doing a thorough inspection of this vessel and trying to see if it was transporting weapons to the Russian Federation. We don't know what that's going to result in, but we'll see. Moving on out of the Strait of Denmark, or more so, correction, the bent of Denmark, we are going to be moving on down and into Paris, France, or as they call it, Paris. Did y'all know, folks, that Paris, France is actually broken up into 27 arrondissements, which are basically the districts of the city?
Now, that is something right there. I didn't know that about Paris.
That is incredibly interesting. And basically, every arrondissement is a completely separate city within the city of Paris. It operates almost like a totally different one. But we did get to hear that out of Paris today, the French President Emmanuel Macron has stated that he welcomes the Kremlin's readiness for Putin-Macron talks, calling it a positive signal. Paris will coordinate next steps with Zelensky, and Macron wants to prevent the U.S. from negotiating the end of the war with Russia alone, according to the BFM TV. It does appear that the French...
Okay, that's why they're doing it. I was thinking for a minute, I was like, why is France all of a sudden flipping the script? Because France has been one of the most outspoken people against Putin and the war against Ukraine, and they've been making all kinds of wild statements in the past, talking about they're going to send troops into Ukraine and things like that, and really inflaming the Russians, certainly. But that must be why they're doing it. They're doing it to get leverage over the United States. It sounds like that's more of the reason behind it, instead of actually trying to really speak to Putin.
Yeah, it does appear that they're just trying to make sure that they keep a foot in the door and stay involved because, we also, sorry, Richard Manieren did correct me. It's actually 20 arrondissements. It's not 27 of them. But beyond that, we do understand that it does appear that the French are just trying to stay involved because we do generally understand that while the U.S. said that Europe would be involved, they basically thrown them all under a bus and they haven't been involving them in the negotiations whatsoever, which are actually ongoing right now still in Miami. From what we know, we have actually been able to hear that new Ukrainian negotiators are going to be arriving tomorrow, including Rustem Umarov and Lieutenant General Andriy Natov, which are going to be joining the U.S. negotiators for the third day of Miami talks. According to Umarov this morning, he stated, "We are working constructively and substantively. We are counting on further progress and practical results." Which I don't know if they'll be able to find any there, but we'll see, because it doesn't really matter if they even find any in the United States. The Russians are never going to accept any of the U.S.'s offers or proposals. But moving on from that, it's time for us to get on, folks, into the actual news from the wire. And it's time for us to get on into all that, because we got a lot of interesting stuff that's been coming out. Moving on down into the Kerch Strait and near into the small area of Volna. This is the small town of Volna. They made it on the news today. And
it looks like depression mixed in with some old Sovietism. So I tell you what, honestly, like when you look at this, I'll be honest with you, folks, this reminds me of kind of where we used to go when we were younger, the backwoods of Mississippi to visit family. It kind of reminds me of it. When you look down this like barely paved kind of half dirt road here and things like that, it looks like you're in the backwoods of Mississippi. Like it looks almost just like it.
It really does, honestly, kind of. But more in apparently the place is
oh wow,
downhill.
It got even ugly. The neighborhood went down. It turns out the property value's lowered. And when was this one taken?
This was taken in September 2019, and if we come down here, this was taken in May of 2013. So it's had a little bit of an upgrade, kind of, but the rest of the buildings are still completely abandoned. So, oh my god!
Oh my god! Look at
Where's
that.
the sanitation department? Good lord! This place is overflowing with it. Dude, they created an inner city landfill.
That is nasty. You would think with this minimal amount of like road that they have to maintain that they could maintain it decent. It looks like they could maintain it decent, but they're definitely not.
And folks, the Russians want to tell us that the West is falling apart. Hell, this is falling apart 7 years ago. Like, you're stuck on some crap from the 60s, man. And there's just random tires just sitting on the side of the street. This is literally what you would see in like a city landfill. This is what you would see in the Salt Lake City landfill if you drove down the road there. This same sort of garbage and refuse. But here we are again back in 2013 when everything was but a shell. Dang. Oh, there's that heating pipe, Matthew, that I was telling you about, where people get the steam for their radiators from a central heating pipe. That's actually one of them passing over the road.
That's interesting. It sure is, honestly. And also some Ladas, a rogue dog. That looks like Lukashenko's dog in the street. You sure he hadn't gotten loose? Maybe that's why things are going sideways. He got loose and he's now lurking around the back streets. That looks very similar to it.
Fifi! Oh, little doggy. But man, I gotta be honest with you, man.
Fifi's gone behind the lines and gone AWOL.
You know, I gotta be honest with you, man. This place is looking a lot like, say, Pokrovsk, and this was in 2013. Why does it look like this?
It's just bad. Like this is the way it's always going to look in Russia, as long as the oligarchs remain in power. It just looks like this. It's hideous.
Jeez, Louise. Let's go back
Hey,
down
the dog
here.
was following the truck. What the hell? Like that's a spy dog. That thing was literally next to the truck as it was going down the street.
Man, due to the passage of time. Oh, wait, but the dog's still down there. And oh, that's 2013. Never mind. I was probably like, yeah, the dog is still there. But let's see. Man, I gotta tell y'all. By the way, the reason why I'm showing y'all this town is that this is near to an oil loading platform that just got blown up today. We're about to get to that here in a second. But this is where the workers that work at those oil loading platforms are living in. They also live up here in Taman, which isn't really that much better off. Because I always want to show y'all what the country looks like that claims that the West is falling apart. Because this is what it looks like. So I don't really think they're in any position to tell us that we're falling apart, because it looks like they've already fallen apart, and this was back in 2019. This is fast food original.
They have a picture of a hamburger, I think that's a lobster, a chicken wing, a hot dog, a soda. I mean, this is original what? It's original American. I mean, fast food original. Like, what, are they claiming they made it in Russia or the USSR?
I guess they're just claiming it's original, so whatever food poisoning you're going to be getting there is authentic. But nevertheless, oh man! But nevertheless, we did get to hear that the oil loading platforms, which are right to the west of Volna, so we were in this town right here. This is right off to the west of it, and some oil loading ships do come here to load up with oil and other oils. We did get to hear that this apparently got hit tonight by a Ukrainian drone attack and is on fire. In the village of Volna in the Timryuk district, 2 piers and 2 vessels were damaged due to a drone attack. Everyone on board the ships... Oh, wait, let me read this off like King Charles III. In the village of Volna in the Temryuk district, 2 piers and 2 vessels were damaged due to a drone attack. Everyone on board the ships has been evacuated. There were no injuries among the crew or personnel on shore. Damage to the boats resulted in fires ranging in size from 1,000 to 1,500 square meters. Firefighting efforts are currently underway. Emergency and special services are on scene. So we do understand that this oil-loading pier has been hit and has been damaged to some degree over the course of the night. Meanwhile, up in Rostov, we finally got a better look at that ship that got hit by the Ukrainian drones and went on under. Take a little gander. Ooh, that thing is under.
Wow. It is really sunk. It is actually sunk. So that entire time that we heard about a ship getting struck near Rostov, it was true, and it's this one.
Man, it was always facts, straight facts. That little buddy's going down by the stern. It's not going down like the Titanic, though. It's actually hit the riverbed right below it. It literally is on the bottom at the stern at the moment. But the bow is still upright, and it appears that at least half of the vessel has taken on water. So I guess you could say, folks, that the captain wired in, he had a water coming in, and the good ship and crew was not really in peril, because they got on the gangway and walked onto shore as the good ship and crew was sinking. But still, does appear the ship did go down, and we got even better pictures of it, because we had this picture the other day of it, but it was really grainy, and this railing actually obscured most of the ship. So we really didn't get that good of a look at it, but it certainly is on the bottom of the river right now. Moving on from that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the actual war that's going on in Ukraine. There's one last piece of news, though, that we have to cover out of St. Petersburg, that there is now a massive mobile internet outage ahead of the EAEU and CIS summits where Putin, Lukashenko, and Central Asian leaders met on December 21st to 22nd. Mobile internet in the city center reportedly stopped working, with banking apps, delivery services, and messenger down. Gotta say, folks, really something right there. They seem to take security quite serious, because you never know what the Ukrainians might pull off. They're very sneaky that way, very efficient. Moving on to the border areas, we were able to hear that the Russians conducted a raid today inside of the Sumy Oblast, near to the village of Herbovsky, where they have apparently abducted 50 civilians, mostly elderly women, and have taken them hostage. According to the Ukrainian foreign minister, he has stated, "We demand our civilian hostages to be returned home. These 50 people and thousands of other civilians forcibly deported to Russia, including Ukrainian children. We urge all states and international organizations to join us in demanding the release of innocent civilian peoples stolen from their homes. This particular war crime is already being prosecuted in Ukraine and should receive an appropriate response at the international level as well. It also underscores the permanent threat of living next to Russia. That is why Ukraine needs a real, lasting peace. Living next to terrorists requires strength and robust security guarantees." So the Ukrainians are making it quite clear that they are very enraged over the kidnapping and hostage-taking of 50 Ukrainian civilians, mostly elderly women, over the course of the day. Moving on into our location unknowns, we also were able to see the Ukrainians taking down the drone with a 50 caliber. Y'all ever seen something this cool? I bet you have. Take a look. Oh, and they got it!
Yes, yes!
Oh, damn.
Yes, baby! And they got that thing. Man, I gotta say, hitting it with a 50 cal, welcome back to World War II, everyone. It's Pearl Harbor in 1941, and we're trying to hit the zeros. Take a look at that. Man, amazing, really. Moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also saw a little bit of spring cleaning being done by Ukrainian soldiers on the front.
Доброго дня, клінінгова компанія. Все, батарейка сіла.
Батарейка сіла.
He's not an effective cleaner, but damn, does he fight a war? Well, pretty damn good.
Man, he might not be able to, vacuum those floors, but one thing that he can do is mop some Russians away, I'll tell you that. Call him a janitor, because he's out here cleaning this place out of Russians.
Скажуть фотошоп, бо.
Well, moving on from that clip and on into our next one, we also got to see the Ukrainians taking down another drone. Take a look at this. This was actually in the midst of evacuating civilians, so this was quite a heroic action for sure. There's the drone. And he got it just in the nick of time, saving a couple of Ukrainian civilians in the process. Incredibly fortunate for him. Moving on from that and into our casualty report, we've also been able to see the Russian casualties over the past 24 hours. And holy smokes, another
they got
Bobcat.
One Bobcat right there. Look at that. You got to admit, that's a nice thing right here. It's I guess it's one Bobcat leading up to Christmas, maybe. Hopefully, it'll be the case.
Man, hopefully so. I would hope that it is going to be something along the lines of a quite good Christmas, but nevertheless, Mr. Eastern Keeper of the Records has stated that troop losses are staying above 1,100. Other categories are below 7-day averages, except for the +1 in Bobcat skid steers. And over the course of the day, folks, over the course of this very day of December 21st of 2025, we've been able to confirm that 1,130 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with an APC, 68 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 11 artillery pieces, 116 drones, 1 Bobcat, and a partridge in a pear tree. Man, I gotta say, we're getting very close to Christmas, and it appears that the Ukrainians are definitely in the spirit of giving lead to the Russians. Meanwhile, moving on out of that location unknowns and on up into the area of Kupiansk, we were able to see that the Russians were leaving with due haste today from their positions near to Kupiansk, as they decided that after their commander got wounded in some very questionable circumstances, that they were all just going to pack up and leave, along with the wounded commander on a stretcher. Man, look at that mud.
That is thick.
Man, thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
Направление на связи. Забрали командира. Покидаем пока позиции.
They're leaving the positions for now, he says.
Тяжелый, все остальные живы. Вот такая вот хуйня.
I gotta tell y'all, that mud, that Rasputitsa, it's rough stuff. We also got to see the 272nd Motor Rifle Regiment giving a little bit of an update, this is from the Russian side, mind you all, on the current conditions within this area of the front. In early December, big stars from Moscow arrived at the 272nd Motor Rifle Regiment of the 47th Tank Division and caused a stir by replacing the regiment's commander, officially due to unsatisfactory advancement rates. In reality, there were less pleasant situations, such as the beating of soldiers, including after injuries, with subsequent orders to reset the counters. It's good that the relatives managed to achieve justice at least in this matter, although there were many more such issues. After the change of command, the 272nd Motor Rifle Regiment was given a new task, to liberate Peshchinoy and Kurilovka before the New Year's to start the assault on Kupiansk-Slovy. To help with them, the 153rd Motor Rifle Regiment was sent, but it's one thing to set a task and another to fulfill it when a regiment's forces are being stretched thin to plug new holes instead of reinforcing. Let's clarify what we're talking about. The 272nd Motor Rifle Regiment is currently working on its main direction. While parallel to this, part of the regiment's assault units were sent to help the 27th Motor Rifle Brigade oust the VSU from Kontrasovka, an important logistics hub for our groupings in Kupiansk. Moreover, in the 272nd Motor Rifle Regiment, there's an acute shortage of components for drones and equipment. The new command didn't find a better solution than to force the soldiers to buy all the stuff with their own money that they're not even hardly being paid. That is, the soldiers have to follow the orders of the big Moscow stars in the face of a total shortage of both spare parts and personnel. Currently, the regiment is working on the classic tactic of using small infantry groups in modern warfare, periodically accumulating purchased equipment with their own money, which then gets destroyed in unprepared assaults. After all, the orders don't wait. The soldiers have already infiltrated the Peshchinoy and Kurilovka and even reached Kupiansk-Slovy, but after they stopped communicating. Supply is exclusively by drones. The birds of the 153rd Motor Rifle Regiment and the 272nd Regiment carry ammunition and provisions, of which there simply is not enough. The change of the regiment's commander would seem to allow the guys to breathe easier and give them the opportunity to carry out tasks without extortion and beatings. But a global breakthrough, which the generals so much dream of, shouldn't be expected before January 1st, unless the VSU suddenly collapses in this direction, sending the reserves to Kucherovka and Petropavlovka. It's hard, tedious work, and the New Year gifts will all at best be postponed for later, and at worst, purchased on credit, so as not to raise questions, why haven't they liberated it yet? So basically saying, we've liberated it, but they haven't. But it is quite interesting to note that apparently they're running out of stuff so badly, funds and equipment, that they're actually forcing the soldiers to buy the weapons of war for the Russian government to fight the war.
It is insane, honestly. Can you believe that? Like, the little bit of money that the Russians are actually getting paid, which is barely anything to begin with in rubles, they're being forced to spend the little money they're getting to even have a weapon. And then after that, after they buy the drones and they get wasted in like the first 5 minutes, there goes their paycheck, there goes their defenses, and then they're screwed. Like, they're royally screwed.
Yeah, I mean, they are absolutely screwed. It's not a good situation for the Russian army, and we understand that that situation is fairly reflective of the front for the entirety of the Russian Federation's armed forces. And a lot of people are wondering why. And Matthew, why is this happening? And what are you thinking is causing this?
All right, so now that we're hearing that apparently the Russian units are forcing soldiers to buy their own drones and weapons with their own money, what do you think about that? 77% said it's because Russia is out of money, while 9% said it's mainly a form of hazing by the commanders, and 5% said it's just sporadic issues that every military has. But I'll be honest, though, I don't think every military is forcing their soldiers to buy their own gear. That sounds a little crazy, and that indicates to me that Russia is running out of money heavily, and the budget for the commanders to buy weapons for the soldiers is not very high. So I think it's purely because they're out of money. I don't think the commanders would choose to basically haze the soldiers by sending them into battle without proper weaponry if the commanders could have it, because when the troops fail, the commanders get in trouble. So it doesn't benefit the commander at all to send them in without weapons. So I doubt it's hazing. It's more about simply being broke boys in the Russian military. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say it definitely is because the Russian government is running out of money. They're running out of funds to give to the army, and for that reason, they're now forcing the bill onto the Russian soldiers, which might still be getting paid a little bit, but all that money is going into buying the weaponry for the Russian government. So I'd have to say they're definitely running out of money at this point. Not a doubt at all on that. But with that, it is time for us to move on out of that area and further on down the line and into Pokrovsk. We were able to see that Russian forces were, of course, getting obliterated down here by the 42nd Mechanized Brigade. The 42nd, they don't play those games on the northern flank, and they're about to be teaching some Russians not to play the game.
Also, by the way, real quick, before we get further into this footage right here, I just want to say this. I got a message on Patreon, of all places, and I have learned the name. I've learned the name, apparently, of the mystery donor that threw in that massive donation tonight, by the way.
Oh?
I'm not sure what's going on. His name is not showing up in the live chat, he says. And also, I can attest, I didn't see it, pop up in the live chat. For some reason, his donation didn't pop up either, but it was counted, though, because it jumped up dramatically, to $2,000 instantly. So, a huge shout-out to Bill Thomas, who apparently threw that in the fundraiser tonight. Not totally sure what's happening, Bill, with it not showing your name like that. I think it might be having a glitch or something, because you should be seen in the live chat. So I'm not sure why that is the case, but a huge shout out to Bill Thomas for throwing in that massive donation right there. And once again, that literally rocketed the fundraiser up to 2,000, from I think it was $1,200 or something. So that was a massive donation. So a huge shout out to Bill.
And a humongous shout out to Bill Thomas, who threw in an unbelievably massive amount of support to the fundraiser and has gotten it well up to where it is right now. We massively thank you for that. It's truly an incredible and wonderful thing to see, and it's always a wonderful thing to know that amazing folks like you who make up the ranks of the Lee Spring Army are continuing to help support the abilities of the Lee Spring Army to hit those fundraiser goals and well on surpass them. So a humongous shout out to you so much once again, and truly an incredible thing to hear, especially to know who that anonymous donor, who was apparently unfortunately not supposed to be anonymous, actually was. And so I hope I addressed that incredibly well. And getting back to this clip, we can see the shed getting hit by this FPV drone. We can also see getting hit a second time, because what's better than getting hit one time? It's getting hit a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. Oh! Oh!
Oh, man. Oh.
Man, I gotta tell you, oh goodness, they're catching this thing on fire. I tell you, folks, someone better call the fire department. Oh, and there was a Russian running around there, and we can now see the tank is clearly a Bruin. Oh, and look, it may be a Russian tanker, or at least a Russian infantryman in the nearby area. Well, I guess he won't be around the nearby area anymore, and this Russian soldier probably won't be either. Looks like he's attempting to hide.
By the way, while we're watching the Russians getting, the unfortunate end of the unfortunate end of the stick, to say the least. I saw Jay Holland say in the live chat, he said, total nonsense. The Russians are winning the war. How come you guys talk about how bad the Russians are doing, yet they keep gaining land every day? Well, I'm not sure, Jay Holland, but your buddy Putin came out yesterday and said that he had Kupiansk. That's what he said, and the generals were saying that too. And then all of a sudden, Zelensky rolled up on the 24s and rolled right into Kupiansk and stood right outside of it and said, actually, Putin's a beach, and we have this place. And it turned out to be true. Actually, Putin was lying about the whole thing. So if you're believing Russian propaganda, then Russia is gaining land every day. But if you're in reality, like the rest of us, they're definitely not.
Jay Holland, that during the entirety of World War One, the Imperial Germans actually were controlling about something like 15% of the landmass of France and a large part of Western Russia before the Russians collapsed into the Russian Civil War, and also before the Germans were defeated in 1918, they were still holding ground inside of France. Do you not know that? Do you not also know that the Germans were also making moderate amounts of gains in terms of land from time to time inside of France, quite literally all the way up until 1918 when they lost? Do you also know that the Nazi Germans actually did gain ground and took Poland and France and pretty much the entirety of continental Europe before they started to be slowed down and then defeated from about 1943 onwards? Do you not know that all? Like, do you know a country doesn't have to lose right off of the bat for it to lose, or a country doesn't have to win right off the bat for it to eventually win the war. I don't think you're getting that, because one thing that I always see is that people will say, how are you saying Ukraine's winning when 20% of their country is occupied? Which is one of the dumbest statements ever, because it doesn't factor in that basically every other war in history, usually an attacker takes a decent portion of land from another country, and then they end up eventually losing the war, like in World War One and in World War Two. So, I don't really know what kind of logic that is, because the Russians just lost Kupiansk about a week and a half ago, and additionally, they're still taking significant losses, and their economy is completely failing. I mean, if anything, they look like the strategic and tactical situation of Imperial Germany at the latter end of World War One. And let me ask you this, did they win? No, they didn't. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense to try and make that parallel or comparison. I gotta say, I don't know where you're coming from with that, but I got to say, some people are quite amiss in the logic department, in the common sense department, and the historical context department, and that particular comment is amiss in all of those. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on into Myrnihad, as we were able to hear the Ukrainian forces win Myrnihad today, especially the 79th Brigade, which is generally holding the city, announced that they still have control of it at the moment. Fighting is still ongoing there, but logistics are continuing to enter the city area, and Ukrainian troops are in clear hold of the central city in northern Myrnihad. Meanwhile, now down near the area of Novohorodzhivka, we also were able to see Russian logistics at its finest.
That man has a shovel.
He has a shovel. Much logistics.
Вместо мотоцикла сейчас выдают не наоборот, да? Я Арминка, блядь, да? Пожертвование дает. Ишаков, пиздец. Нихуя себе.
Oh, the donkey.
Well, donkey. See, this is right here is actually a matter of fact, folks, what Jay Holland calls a winning country. Because clearly in the modern day, in the 21st century, in 2025, when your military gets destroyed to the point that they're having to use donkeys for supply transport, that clearly shows you're winning the war. This donkey looks about as confused as I am when I heard that guy say the Russians were still winning the war.
Donkey's in shock. He's actually being treated right by a Russian. He was in pure shock.
He's like, what the hell?
Honestly, that donkey is pretty chill to be in a war zone, honestly. Like, you got to give it to him. That ass right there is a lot smarter than the Russian holding him with the rope.
Man, honestly. Oh, man, and y'all, the poor guy had to go. That poor guy had to go. Matthew just had to get him with a banhammer. Very unfortunate to see. It's always funny, folks. You know what's funny, folks, is that nowadays, this is something that you'll see all over, and this is something that we have to deal with every night. The truth is attached to your political ideology. It's not attached to real facts or anything. It's just attached to what you want to believe. Because this person just said, you must be getting your information from a political party, which we have a heavy dislike of both political parties, because we're saying that the Russians are losing. Literally everyone on the planet, except for the President of the United States and the Special Envoy, are saying, the Secretary of State and the Secretary of War, or the Secretary of Defense, or whatever you want to call them, everyone else is saying the Russians are losing. So, who in the world's wrong? Is it everyone in the world, or for a people? It's probably for people that are wrong, I would assume. With that, we're moving on to Pokrovsk, where we were able to see the Russians getting hit within the city. Take a little look. And there they go into the building. Oh, they're about to give him a treat. A little Christmas present. Ding dong. Look, they got it. Santa came down the chimney.
Honestly, compliments to the roof. That's a sketchy looking roof for it to hold on that well. It wasn't even phased by that explosion.
The roof kind of expanded, though, a little bit and then contracted during the explosion. It's like, man, that thing was kind of a little strong, actually. Oh, and this Russia's...
whoa. That guy took a pot shot at the drone. Look at that. He actually warded the drone off.
It looks like he actually might have missed him. This is a lease fuse, by the way. This one's on warranty.
Oh, man.
Oh. Gotta say, the 68th Jaegers, they're not playing around down there, that's for sure. Moving on from that, we're now going to be moving down towards the area of Velika Novosilka, where we also were able to see the Russians getting hit in the Havery-Livka direction. Oh, they got that millennial music playing.
It scared me there for a minute. I was like, what in the world's going on? I'm getting a little ho-hey music going on in here, like that hipster burger joints like to play on the radio.
We are young.
Oh, man.
Oh,
jeez. Oh, man. I gotta give you one Pinocchio for that. I'm sorry.
Man. Dude, you can't lie, though. That is, like, the song.
That is the song. With the toothpick in the bun.
You know, you gotta wear red and black flannel along with a straw hat, and you gotta play a guitar when you sing those songs, and also wear those thick black framed glasses. If you don't have that look, you just can't do those songs right. And you also have to talk about world peace and everything, although that's very far from reality of the situation around the world. But moving on from that and towards the area of Stepnihirsk and Kamyanske, we also saw the 106 TDF doing a little number on Russian equipment and forces. Impuffer put it right. The yay, clap, hey music. Yeah, there you go. That's the name of it.
Or a ho-hey stomp type beat.
You know, you always got to start off every song with that drum beat and that guitar and then hear that, oh, hey, oh, you know, you got to do that stuff. It's just silliness. Oh, dang. Bro, that Buhanka rolled over this thing and didn't even notice it? Dude. Yeah. Yeah. Man, I gotta tell y'all, folks, the energy here, it's trying hard. But we can see here that they're getting hit by the once again by the Ukrainian FPVs. Oh, and they got the bike as well. And it does appear that it was quite a good day to say the least. And moving us on down into the area of Kherson and Crimea, we got to hear that there is a large drone attack ongoing right now. We haven't been able to get any video or picture evidence at the moment of any targets being hit within the area, but we have a feeling that it's probably going to be coming out incredibly soon. With that, we are going to be moving on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1397 of the war. And so, without further ado, folks, it's finally time, because Zelensky has finally made it to a free moment for a speech. Peach! Peach!
Play it!
Бажаю здоров'я. Завершуємо цей історичний тиждень для України. Значний дипломатичний тиждень. Головне, ми забезпечили для України 90 мільярдів євро на 2 роки. Це ключовий результат грудня. Багато в чому важливий результат всього року. Є позитивне рішення Європи. Ми боролись за це рішення дуже довго. Я хочу подякувати всім, хто допомагав. Важливо, що російські активи залишаються в Європі, залишаються заблокованими. Україна буде отримувати мінімум по 45 мільярдів євро щорічно протягом наступних 2 років. І кошти ці можуть повертатись тільки за рахунок російських коштів. Росія повинна платити за свою війну. 90 мільярдів євро – це для всіх в Україні фінансова гарантія безпеки. Цілком реальна. Дякую лідерам Європи, Антоніо Кошту, Урсулі фон дер Ляєн, всім лідерам держав, які нас підтримали. Продовжуємо працювати, щоб всі російські активи були спрямовані на реальний захист від російської війни та на відновлення нашої держави. Є такі кошти не тільки в Європі. З кожним урядом ми контактуємо. Це одне з найбільш складних завдань, не менш складне, ніж забезпечити зброю для України. Але і це ми вирішимо. Кошти на відновлення будуть. Також зараз працюємо українська переговорна команда у Флориді. Сьогодні ще зустрічі з американською делегацією, з представниками президента Сполучених Штатів Дональдом Трампом. Триває робота над документами про закінчення війни, про гарантії безпеки, про відбудову. Детально йдуть по кожному пункту і є конструктив з американською стороною. Це важливо. Говорять також і про таймінг, про можливі часові рамки тих чи інших рішень. Я очікую на доповідь Рустема Умєрова та Андрія Гнатова по деталях розмови. Сьогодні були у мене міжнародні розмови також з прем'єр-міністром Норвегії Йонасом Стере, з канцлером Німеччини Фрідріхом Мерцем та з генсеком НАТО Марком Рюте. Дуже ціную вашу підтримку, дорогі друзі. Україна буде сильною надалі. Цими днями також займалася ситуацією в Одеській області. Там на місці були віце-прем'єр Кулеба, заступник керівника Офісу Микита, залучені необхідні служби, необхідні наші військові сили, щоб гарантувати надійну логістику з півднем Одеської області. Я дякую всім, хто працює заради наших людей на Одещині. Є розуміння всіх викликів. Це намагання Росії заблокувати Україні доступ до морської логістики. Треба, щоб світ про це не мовчав. Треба, щоб кожен бачив без тиску на Росію. Там не збираються реально завершувати з агресією. Тиск має збільшуватись. Тому наступний тиждень, хоч це і буде тиждень Різдва, коли у світі політична робота затихає, ми все одно будемо на контакті з партнерами, з кожним, хто може допомогти нам захищати нашу державу, наших людей, нашу енергетику, нашу стійкість, з усіма, хто працює на тиск проти Росії, з усіма, хто робить реальним закінчення війни. Працюємо так, щоб кожен день використати для України. І в цьому році ще мають бути відповідні новини, пакети підтримки для нашої держави, рішення, які зменшують російську можливість воювати проти нас. Дякую всім, хто з України. Також на наступному тижні очікую доповіді щодо деяких очільників місцевих адміністрацій, яких варто вже замінити. Будуть і нові наші санкційні рішення. Дякую всім. Слава Україні!
Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1,397 of the news from around the world. And that is going to be moving us on, folks, into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, what an incredibly fun time that's going to be. We can talk about literally anything and everything, except for religion, politics, climate change, or whether the A-10 is relevant in modern warfare or not. And also, on top of that, folks, I do have to say that this fundraiser has done absolutely swimmingly tonight. We have raised $4,515 for Nova Ukraine, an absolutely unbelievable amount of support, and truly incredible to see. I gotta say that we're entirely, greatly appreciative to each and every single one of y'all, and of course it's a wonderful and incredible thing to know that so many people continue to support the fundraisers and help us to see that the Lee Spring Army will never truly die and will continue to support Western and American interests around the world. Simultaneously, we'd also like to shout out once again, just to make sure to remind everyone, of the amazing fundraiser that's being run by United 24. Link in the description below our stream. To get to that, all you have to do is go to the stream, which I will get up on air here really quickly. So let me see if I can do that right here without YouTube acting all weird about it. So what you would do is if you're on your computer right here on stream, you go down here, and it should look like this at the moment. If you're looking at that normally, you click this More button, and then it's going to be this first link right here. You click on that, and it brings you directly to the United 24 website, to where you can support this fundraiser, which currently is attempting to raise funds to help modernize the shelters in kindergartens near to the Ukrainian front line, which is a massive help and helps to save Ukrainian lives, especially that of kindergarten-age children, which are currently, once again, living in the midst of a country that is at war with the Russian Federation actively attacking civilian populations. It would be an absolutely incredible and amazing thing to know that the Lee Spring Army could dedicate some of its efforts not only to supporting this fundraiser tonight for Nova Ukraine, but also the amazing fundraiser that United 24 is running. And so with that in mind, we are going to be moving on into that question segment. But before we do, folks, I do want to make sure that we get to the top donors that have come in between the last segment and this one, so that way we we can recognize them and thank them, along with everyone else that we can't call out who has put in below $50. We still thank you all massively, though, for supporting the fundraiser, whether it was $1 or thousands of dollars, because each and every single one of y'all comes together in your own way and in your own place to make this fundraiser what it is and how large it became. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we are actually fresh out of top donors for the night. We have called off all the top donors, by the way. So once again, a huge shout out to everybody for helping us to reach 4520 on the fundraiser right there. That is nicely stacked and piled up for the nice charity of the night, which is Nova Ukraine. So a huge shout out to everybody once again for that massive generosity and making another Sunday night fundraiser another big success. But also, by the way, folks, you know, earlier in the stream, I was making the whole joke about OJ and how the whole ship situation near Venezuela is probably the biggest thing that's happened since the OJ chase out there. I think it was in Los Angeles. I can't remember. It was before my time, but I know the reference, though. We actually have a solid from OCent Technical who actually brought that idea to life, and we have it on our Twitter page. So, Enforcer, if you can go grab that Twitter post and show the people, the one from OCent Technical, we have an illustration of OJ fleeing the scene in his oil tanker.
Oh my God, that's actually pretty good.
That's honestly, that's a solid right there about OCent Technical. I think this illustrates the situation masterfully. This is like a Picasso. This is fantastic, honestly. The old cop cars, the stuff. This is better than a Bronco. I mean, an oil tanker. I mean, that's way better than a Bronco, I would say.
Man, I gotta be honest with you, man. I mean, this thing is kind of bucking like a Bronco, I've heard at high seas, because this thing looks like an absolute dump. I mean, let's get back to the picture of that thing again, because I gotta say, folks, that thing's probably bucking like a Bronco. That thing's going, this thing,
honestly, I think the one that OCent Technical got to put in his gift there, I think that's actually a much cleaner looking ship than the one that actually exists in real life. That one's way too clean. This is too clean. This is like rubber ducky bathtub like levels of clean right here. This is too much. They gotta grimy that thing up a little bit.
Bro, honestly, man, hold up. Let me try and get this right here. Hold up. Let me pull this up, because this ship comes to mind, man, when I'm thinking of that that little tanker that is being chased right now. This one is the one that comes to mind.
Oh man, that right there is like that Somali one. You know, the one that I think that's the one they went and got Captain Phillips with on the Maersk. Like they went out on something like that.
Look at me, I'm the captain now, man. Like I don't think it was this one. This was actually the Ruyu on Maru, which was sunk by the U.S. Coast Guard, I believe, for being a ghost ship that drifted into American waters.
Man, ghost ship. Honestly, you feel like freaking Davy Jones in his locker is gonna be on board that thing. That thing's hideous. You got like moss all over it and stuff. Look at that smoking. Where's that smoking coming from?
Man, it's coming from the direct hit that the U.S. Coast Guard landed on this bee just a little while before.
Damn, that's tough there. That is tough. That is nasty, too. That's really a junker. That looks like that junker. Let's harkening back to the Captain Phillips movie again about the ship. I can't remember the name of the ship, but it was a Maersk. It looks like the command ship that the Somalis were using for all those little skiffs that were going out to go take the ship. It's like the one that they were doing the radio calls from. It's like that one.
Wait a minute, you can't remember the name of the Maersk ship that was involved in that, Matthew?
Was it the Alabama?
Yeah, it was the Alabama. I was really like, dude, that was our home state that was involved in this. At least
why'd they have to get the Alabama?
Man, I don't know, man. And I got to be honest with y'all, folks, that crew didn't operate like an Alabamian crew, because once Somali pirates started to get close to the ship, if it was an Alabamian crew, they would have said, "That's not my purse. I don't know you. Get off my property, Pam." They would start firing some pot shots at them. They didn't do that, but, still it carried the name of the Alabama, the state of Alabama, at least. I do have to say that this thing is kind of looking a little rough, though.
Oh, this is after the hijacking. So, wow, they kept using it after that. I didn't know they kept using it. I thought maybe they'd retire it or something, but they kept old Bessie moving, apparently. It looks like it's sagging. Like, I mean, is it just me, or does it look like it's sagging in the back?
Dude, this thing had a Carolina squat before it even existed.
That's why they call it the Maersk, Alabama.
Man, they go riding around listening to some country music like Johnny Cash, with nothing but like little tins of Copenhagen up there on the bridge. Dude, this is the Alabama. Like, this is the Alabama. And then they got a couple of Dracos up there too. It's really definitely Alabama. But we can see the lifeboat here that the pirates had. Look, it's the whole thing, folks. It's the whole thing.
There's the real Captain Phillips right there, not Tom Hanks. Go back to that picture real quick. I want to see that real Captain Phillips. There he is. honestly, like, it's weird how Tom Hanks has a way, like, he's like has a face that kind of like fits everybody. It's like, how does he have a face that fits everybody? He kind of actually looks like the guy a little bit.
Yeah, he kind of does. Also, the commander, Frank Castellano, man, he looks more happy to meet the captain of the Maersk, Alabama than the Maersk, Alabama captain looks to meet him.
Bro, is that Jesse Waters?
Jesse Waters? No, that's Frank Castellano.
Man, it looks like freaking Jesse Waters over there. These people are looking like Tom Hanks and Jesse Waters. These are like imposters, doppelgangers.
Man, honestly, they kind of are. But man, look, there's the USS Bainbridge. I think the USS Bainbridge is in Southcom right now. Actually, I think it is.
It gets around.
Man, I get around, yeah, I get around, round. You know that song, but I did it terribly. Don't quote that, folks, and don't clip that. That was rough. But still, it kind of does remind me of that, though. It kind of does remind me. At least this one does.
Also, someone just said an interesting fact about, or an interesting statement, at least allegedly, about Tom Hanks. Well, you see it, all right. You see it, that one.
Oh, what? What?
What was that?
What? What did you say?
In the chat, right? Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks. You see it?
Tom Hanks did what? Like, what do you say, young man? I can't hear you over the sound of overseas Milan blowing up right now. But yeah, I see. I'm just kidding around. But I allegedly, I think he lives in Greece right now.
Greece.
Yeah, I think he lives in Greece. I know Kevin Spacey is in Greece. He like talked about that on some show a while ago about how he's broke and he's having to, like, I think go from, like, according to him, from like bar to bar singing to try and make ends meet, and he's sleeping on someone's couch or something like that. But
damn,
I mean, he's fallen on hard times, man. And it all started because he had a traffic infraction where he passed a stop sign, and everything went down from there. But beyond that, that's kind of crazy. That really is the beginning of the downfall of Kevin Spacey, was a traffic stop for passing through a stop sign, and then everything else came after that. It was like a giant Pandora's box that unopened there. But anyways. I gotta say, folks, very, very nasty looking ship. Also, where the hell is the iron oxide paint that they put on the ships to protect from barnacles here? Like, they said, let's get gray paint and paint the area below the waterline.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's probably the least of their concerns with this old bad boy.
I mean, maybe. I think the fact that they're under a high-speed chase, a low-speed chase by the Coast Guard right now is probably the top priority of their concerns. And I saw some people earlier saying that they had actually taken the Bella one. We have not heard that, and we do not have any confirmation from the Department of Defense or the Coast Guard or anyone else that the ship has been seized yet at all. So, from what we know, the chase is still on at the moment, and they're still following the ship, however fast it's going through the area.
That's insane, honestly. Like, in my head, like I'm imagining like this thing, like those hydrofoils that lift up above the water and start going really high speed. It's like, is this thing like secretly a hydrofoil or something? I mean, what do they mean by they're hotly pursuing it? It's like, obviously the helicopters can catch it, the Navy can probably catch it. So I'm beginning to wonder, and once again, this is all speculation. Don't take it as fact. I'm not accusing anybody of having weapons on the ship, but I'm beginning to wonder if maybe there's armed guards on board the ship that may be warding off the Coast Guard.
Yeah, I mean, I would maybe, I mean, possibly, but I just don't know. They're quite scared to approach this ship. I feel like they ought to just, board it while it's moving and take it. I mean, hell, the Houthis did that, and the Houthis are literally like, untrained terrorists, and they were boarding ships while they were moving and taking them. So it's like, why can't the Coast Guard? But anyways, enough of that, folks. Enough of that. It's time to get to some questions. Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our questions, we have our Morse code decoders first, and we had the whole roster. We had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, as well as Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arable Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Coach Gilberterix, Sire, and Brian Blairstown. They said, the Morse says, Russia and Iran are getting their ships chased down and boarded. It's a bad day to be an Axis, LOT, LSA.
And ding, 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 ding. And that's the sound of money. Why, golly, y'all got the jackpot. And y'all did get that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message tonight. I got to congratulate y'all on getting that correct, because at least Spring Army Cinema Corps gets that correct time and time again. It is truly an amazing feat of engineering and mental ability that y'all continue to get that correct, and y'all continue to show the entirety of the Lee Spring Army that there is no way in hell that y'all would ever get the Morse code message incorrect. So an amazing congrats to y'all once again. And with that, let's get some questions, Matthew. Some entertainment, perhaps.
All right, so let's get into some of our questions of the night, by the way. And our first one here from our live chats is going to go to none other than AF Kaplan, who throws in fantastic questions every single night and helps to make my job easier. And thank you very much, AF Kaplan, for the question. He said, why do you think the U.S. said no to Israel's plans to attack Iran? And do you think the U.S. has its own attack plan, or is it something else?
If we really said no, which I'm thinking we probably may have, it's probably just so that way we can maintain the illusion of peace in the area and hope that nothing happens, because, you know, kind of do have to remember that the current administration is the administration of peace, although we are openly saying that we're going to bomb Venezuela and go to war with them, and we take pride in blowing up and killing at least alleged narco terrorists. We are the administration of peace currently. So with that in mind, we have to continue to keep the semblance of peace within the Middle East for that to continue to stand as a claim that, you know, I brought peace to Timbuktu and Taiwan, as well as Iran and Israel and Cambodia and Thailand and India and Pakistan and Azerbaijan and Armenia, and then a couple of Central African countries, which I didn't even hear that we were involved in negotiating pieces for ever, but apparently they're on the list. So that's why we're not wanting this to happen, because if it happens and the Israelis preemptively attack Iran, and we gave them authorization to, if that information was true, that we denied the authorization, it's so that way we can try and make it look like there's peace within the region, although the Iranians may actually be getting poised to attack the state of Israel and may actually attack them incredibly soon. So that's the reality of it, because notice, folks, this is something very important to notice, is that the Thailand-Cambodia war was not only a statement that we brought peace to the area, although it was just a ceasefire. We went all the way through the effort of putting in place the Malaysia Accords, which was a peace treaty between the two sides that was legally binding. And because we didn't address the underlying issues between the two countries that started the first conflict, they attacked each other again, the peace treaty was ripped up, and the war started all over. And now that that's become a completely clear failure at achieving peace, the current administration acts like Thailand and Cambodia doesn't even exist. They don't talk about them. They don't even talk about trying to bring peace to the area. They literally sat there and said, there is going to be a ceasefire in place at this place and this time. And then after that statement was made, they have never made another statement about that war again. So right now in the U.S. public, this is something a little bit interesting to know, folks. Right now, if you're in the general U.S. public and you don't pay attention to news here on this channel, you might actually believe that the president's tweet was accurate and that a ceasefire went into place again and peace was restored in the region. Because basically no news agency is talking about this war, rarer than us. And also on top of that, the president's last statement would make you think that there is no fighting in the region because the ceasefire was put back into a place and is now in effect, which is not the case either. So, you know, that might be the reason why we're trying, if we're denying the Israelis the authorization to attack the Iranians, that might be the reason why, is so that way we don't have another Thailand, Cambodia on our hands. And on top of that, considering that the Middle East is a hot point, especially for media coverage, there's no way to really just deny and walk away from that one if it does start up again, because it's going to be undeniably happening because it gets a lot of media coverage. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least from what I would be able to say, the reason why we wouldn't give an authorization. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next question is going to go to Sean Willem. He said, could the crew of the tanker near Venezuela, it's currently being pursued, could the crew be armed?
It's possible that the crew may be armed, and that may be the reason why the Coast Guard is hesitant in conducting any actions against the Bella One. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And we have a question here from Mary Jacobs, who said, since the Iranian vessel is heading to Venezuela, could it possibly have weapons on board for Venezuela to defend itself with? And that's a good reason, if that is true, that we couldn't let it pass.
That is true. Generally, we shouldn't be allowing them to pass, especially if they're on a sanctions list and we have a court order to seize the vessel. So for those reasons, both, we would definitely need to stop and seize this vessel. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Patrick Chapdelaine, who said, are the missiles of Iran, are they reliable? And I don't know if Iran could aim all the long-range missiles and even hit anything of significance.
Oh, they can definitely hit stuff of significance. Like, their missiles do have a decently higher failure rate of around 15 to 20% from what we last saw. But that is not a critical failure rate like the Russians get on a lot of their modern missile systems. When the Israelis were getting hit last time, and there's been a little bit of revisionist history on this, crazily enough, although we were literally here to cover it, there were dozens of missiles that made it through Israel's air defense perimeter and hit something inside of Israel. And for some reason, a lot of people looking back at that now say that the Israelis' interception rate was 90-something%. We can literally go back and watch the streams that we ran, and you can see endless videos of missiles hitting everywhere inside of Israel. I mean, there was literally not a city or a place that was not hit by an Iranian missile. And if the interception rates were 90-something%, like a lot of people claim, that would have never happened. There were multiple impacts, at least over a dozen that I can remember, or more, that happened in the Tel Aviv area. There was some that hit Beersheba, and including one that directly hit a hospital within the area. There was also another missile that hit, well, several of them within the port of Haifa, and 2 of them at this oil refinery right here within the city. And there was also a larger number of other missiles and drones that also made it through and were hitting other targets throughout the country. So the Iranians do have a decent amount of efficacy with their missile systems, and they actually do pose a bit of a threat, especially to the Israelis, considering that a singular overwhelming attack could actually knock out most of their defensive capabilities. And they also pose a strategic threat to the United States within the area, because they could also do the very same action to us, a lot like they did at the Al Adid Air Base, which we then defended from, and generally didn't really stop them from hitting the radome and other stuff at Al Adid. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Avari Mandabrados, who said, where in Houston does the United States think they will be able to import and refine Venezuelan crappy oil? And wouldn't it cost as much to build the infrastructure to process that oil as the oil is valued?
So interesting enough, I actually did some research on that, and some of the Gulf Shore oil refineries, especially the ones around Port Arthur and Galveston, are actually designed to be able to accept high sulfur content crude oil, or sour crude as it's called, from Venezuela. So it actually can be processed and refined here in the United States of America, because some of our refineries actually were made way back in the day, decades ago, to be able to handle and refine sour crude from Venezuela, back when we actually had significant oil imports from the Republic of Venezuela. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a question from the new Glenn. And they said, did you guys see the new U.S. Navy class of ship that they're coming out with?
Let me see here if I can go pull it up really quickly. Let's see here.
And the new Glenn says that's called the FFX program. And it was announced on December the 19th of 2025. So it's apparently brand new.
I mean, you know, it kind of, you know, it sort of is, because the Constellation class, which was a guided missile frigate, was the original planned vessel that we were supposed to be making, and they completely canceled that project. You know, man, rest in peace to the Navy, the most important branch, honestly, of the U.S. military. And then they've now sized it down to this, which is basically just an improved U.S. Coast Guard cutter, Legend class cutter.
Interesting. That is fascinating. So in other words, they downgraded. That seems like a strange choice to make, considering that China's Navy is the main concern right now of the U.S. Military, is that they're able to produce ships in mass numbers and also, you know, apparently outnumber our Navy, even though, granted, they're probably not as good as our ships. It seems an interesting choice.
So let's see here. The program was announced in December 19th, and the ships will be built by Huntington Ingalls Shipping. Cool. Let's see. Secretary of Navy announced the cancellation of the Constellation frigate program beyond the first 2 hulls, citing the need to build ships at a faster rate. So instead of actually getting the VLS cells that we need, we're actually going to be building ships that don't have VLS cells and are generally counting on thoughts and prayers to be able to fight the Chinese. So that's a great plan. It's not like modern warfare revolves around missile combat. So clearly a ship that's more further deprived of VLS cells compared to its Constellation class counterpart, which I'll go and get y'all here again, which actually did have VLS cells built into it. Clearly, that's going to give us a fighting advantage, just having a larger number of less quality ships compared to China's toe-to-toe fighters that they have that actually could take on an Arleigh Burke. So, you know, hey, that's a great idea. But beyond that, let's see. Changes from the original NSC design include the construction of a platform above the stern boat deck for modular payloads and unmanned systems. A prominent shelf-like platform is also visible in the released rendering located in the forward superstructure behind the main gun. It's speculated to be a space for VLS systems, but we don't really know if it is. They're actually talking about this elevated area here behind the superstructure. We don't know if anything could fit in there. Honestly, folks, looking at it, that looks more so like engine exhaust manifolds than anything. So I don't think that's going to be for VLS cells, and I don't really think that area back there is going to be for VLS cells either, because there's actually a missile-based close-in weapon system that's right there that would generally block the VLS cells from being made. So I gotta say, I don't really like the new one. I actually like the Constellation class. I was actually very excited for the Constellation class because it was basically more so an improvement on the Arleigh Burke, and really what the Navy needed was a conventional hull type that was an improvement on the Arleigh Burke and was going to be replacing the aging hulls that we currently have within the Navy. And instead of having these, we're now going to have these, which are quite literally just Coast Guard cutters that are going to be used in Navy service, which isn't good for long-range expeditionary actions of the Navy, especially considering that we would have to go fight China over in East Asia pretty much on their own home turf, and it wouldn't be good to have underarmed ships going into that area. We're basically begging for them to be sitting ducks. So with that, I hope that does address that well, in my opinion. This is, to be entirely honest, a major downgrade. And I don't know why the Navy is getting dissed on these days in funding. It's been dissed on in the past 12 years, really the past 16 years. There's hardly any funding that's appropriated for anything beyond supercarrier construction, which is very nearsighted because supercarriers are great, but they have to be defended by destroyers and cruisers. And we're not building any new destroyers and cruisers. Even the Constellation class was a frigate by tonnage, which is not a destroyer. It's not even a destroyer. A cruiser is heavier than a destroyer, and this was even smaller than a destroyer, technically, in raw tonnage. And it's like, this is just absolutely abhorrent. It's like the money that we put into the Golden Dome, which is going to be $500 billion, could have been put entirely into the Navy, which is really where we need this, because you could build ships like the Ticonderoga and others that could intercept hypersonic missiles. It only is a improvement in targeting systems, radars, and missiles that would be needed, which is far cheaper to put on a ship. And also, we get a lot more utility out of a ship rather than a satellite-based detection system that then coordinates ground-based air defense systems within the continental United States to defend the skies. The Navy could do that all the same far before these missiles ever even made it to the United States. But I don't know why we're doing everything that we're doing these days. The funding should have gone to the Navy, and it's not. So now we're getting these, which are the Guppy version of the Constellation class. You know, not really a big fan of this thing. Someone though, we're about to get that de facto statement, folks, in a second from someone. What do you know about the Navy? Well, I not a lot, but I know that having a ship these days that's not equipped with large missile arrays is a death sentence usually, so not a great idea for this thing. Anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next question goes to Mary Jacobs, who said, y'all played devil's advocate for us and explained why the illusion of thinning our military out is a good thing, and maybe like forcing China to act on something sooner than they wanted. Honestly, Marie, I don't think the illusion of thinning the military is a good thing at all, because... And I'll be honest with you, I don't really think we are thinning the military. I think it's all rhetoric. I think in reality, they just once again approved a massive, almost $1 trillion military budget just a short while ago. So I don't think they're actually doing that personally. I think that's just simply, yapping coming out of certain people's mouths. And our military is still the same size and it will remain that way. I think the problem that I'm having right now is it's the illusion of the diplomacy side of things that apparently the U.S. isn't so sure if they're going to stand up with their allies or not. They're not really so committal to that in the current day as they used to be. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the downsizing in the military isn't really a good look. It also makes us look conventionally weaker because we have less manpower to work with off of the bat. In the modern day, the concept is that a major power or a global superpower like us has to be at a constant state of pre-mobilization, which means that we have enough manpower that at hour one of the outbreak of a war, we basically already have enough manpower to carry us through those next 6 months or so of that conflict before we can start getting mobilization going at home. And the fact that we're saying that we're downsizing the military, which may or may not be true. I couldn't tell y'all. We'll just have to see how it pans out in time. It's not really a good look because it'll make us look weaker to our adversaries. So not really the best move. And so with that, I hope that does address it well. And also, I saw the one and only Louis say, Enforcer Man, Enforcer, would you guys say that as long as we've truly been keeping track of enemy subs as a whole, the U.S. Navy should make it through some serious crap on top? Not necessarily, because in a modern war with basically everyone in every single way, everything is a missile war. Modern aircraft are basically missile carriers. Modern ships are missile carriers. Even the Army, in a bit of a more abstract sense, although this really isn't the case for the Army, is a missile carrier, basically. But more so as a direct actual ground combatant. But that's also why we don't count on them as the spearhead of any U.S. operation. We always count on the Navy and the Air Force to spearhead any operations, which are the missile carriers, basically. And then the Marines and the Army come in and they take care of whatever's left after we've obliterated someone with guided ordnance or missilery. In the modern day, in a Navy, the way that you win a fight is to just have more missiles available than your enemy. That's it, really. You just have to be able to fling enough anti-ship missiles at an enemy battle group that their air defenses are overwhelmed, and just one of those anti-ship missiles have to hit a modern warship for it to be knocked out. Modern warships are not designed to take a hit at all. Not even ours, not the Chinese, not anyone's. Our ships are designed in the modern day to completely avoid taking a hit. If they take a hit, it's over. You have to abandon ship, it's basically cooked. So that's really how modern naval wars are fought. So when we talk about modern naval combat, it's more so about how many available missiles do we have in our surface fleet. And also how many available aircraft do we have from our aircraft carrier strike groups that also can carry missiles that could overwhelm a other fleet or battle groups' air defense capabilities. And that's really where the fight's fought and won. Submarines are incredibly important, but in a whole other way, especially when it comes to actual battles at sea and actual power projection over an area. Submarines are stealthy. They don't control large areas of the open sea like surface ships do. Surface ships are generally involved in actually holding down and controlling an area at sea, basically infantry. Submarines are like the special operations forces of the Navy. They're stealth, they slip in somewhere, they conduct precise precision attacks, usually against a high priority target like a naval repair installation or a major port, or maybe an important convoy that has been dubbed as a high priority target that the surface fleet can't get to because the Chinese Navy's in the way, but the submarine could get to and then hopefully evade detection and then escape. So we could try and detect and destroy Chinese submarines, but that's more so stopping any form of merchant raiding that the Chinese would do. It isn't really stopping the Chinese, though, with their surface fleet, especially if they start to outnumber us in terms of their available destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and the amount of vertical launch cells and missiles that they have that could be available at any moment at sea, from overpowering our surface fleet and either forcing them to retreat or having them outgunned to the point that they actually take hits and we start losing destroyers and cruisers in the Pacific. So that's generally why I'm saying that it's not a good thing to start deprioritizing ships that can carry VLS cells and large numbers of them, because once we start to do that, we're basically losing any sort of a direct surface battle with the Chinese at sea, because if they have more missiles to fire at us than we do at them, and we have less air defense capabilities because of our lack of VLSs than they do, we have already lost that battle just by the numerical amount of interceptors we would need versus the amount of missiles that they fired. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from my concept of naval warfare, because crazily enough, from what I've read and studied, it's basically entirely about who can fire as many missiles and who can shoot down as many incoming missiles as possible. And if you can get those two things down, you've basically won a modern naval engagement. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving into our next one here. This is actually a super chat this time, and thank you very much, Tom Exman, for throwing in that $20 super chat, that is. And he said, here's some gift shopping money.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Tom Exman, and thank you for the gift shopping money. We are greatly appreciative of it, and it's going to help us to eat the birds on Tuesday. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a question from Jack Ragnarsson. He said, have you two heard about the Ukrainian children being held in North Korea? And do you think there is a chance that they will ever be released or rescued?
They are actually in some form of a summer camp, from what we know, in North Korea. I don't think it's a summer camp. That's the official statement. It's probably some form of a labor camp of some kind. I don't know if they'll ever be released, because once you go into North Korea, nobody can really get you out. I mean, everyone's hands are really tied, because if we try and get anyone out, even if they're Americans, we could risk a nuclear conflict with the North Koreans. So our hands are kind of tied. It really is on the benevolence of North Korea, and benevolence in North Korea generally does not exist to get those Ukrainian kids out. So unfortunately, that's probably quite a grim situation. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to EJ Kress. Excuse me, by the way. And EJ said, what are the chances that this tanker has missiles aboard it near Venezuela, and maybe they're threatening to launch those toward the United States?
Oh, that would most likely be unlikely. We could probably easily intercept those missiles, especially considering that's in the Eastern Caribbean before they ever made it to the United States. And generally that would be considered an act of war, so we would just start obliterating that ship outright. So I would highly doubt that. It's probably the fact that the crew is armed and would be able to try and fire at a Coast Guard helicopter if it came close, and that may be what's stopping any action against the ship for now, if I had to take a good assumption at it. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, I heard someone say, in the chat, there was actually some rumors in Washington that someone up there, and I won't name who, but I'm sure all of y'all know, wanted to bring back the Iowa-class battleships into combat service. They are entirely obsolete. They were considered auxiliary support ships back in the day, back during the Gulf War. There's nothing that an Iowa-class battleship can do. It's a ship that was designed in a different era, in a different time, for an entirely different form of naval warfare, and there's really no way to upgrade that thing or modify it to make it to where it's usable today. It requires an exorbitant amount of fuel. It has an extremely slow speed compared to modern ships, especially for the fuel consumption. And not only that, because of how the ship was designed, there's really no way to array modern weaponry on the thing without basically rebuilding it from the ground up, and you might as well build a new ship at that point. So the Iowa-class battleships will never be put back into service, and if they were being put back into service, they're basically death traps. There's no way in hell that I would ever say that anyone that I know should ever serve on a refitted Iowa-class battleship at this point, because warfare has moved so far on from that they are quite literally entirely obsolete, even with the 1991 refits that they had for the Gulf War on them still. But with that, I hope that has addressed that well, and we are on to the next one.
And jumping into our next live chat question, goodness, I need some water at this point. I need some of that H2O, some of that agua. Not trending agua, I just need some agua. But Farmer Dave said, you fellas get a chance to check out the Vanguard rocket program. It's the plan to get boots on the ground anywhere in the world in under an hour. And is that a thing? Like, let's pull that up and see what that is real quick, because I haven't heard about that.
The Vanguard what?
Vanguard rocket program.
Rocket program. Let's see. The Vanguard, let's see, Vanguard second. So let's see, I found the Vanguard rocket, which was an early rocket made apparently by NASA in 1957 to 1959. But this is, oh, that's Project Vanguard. So I can't find anything about some Vanguard project to get U.S. forces on the ground within an hour anywhere in the world. I can't find that at the moment, so unfortunately, I think we'd have to declare ignorance on that for now. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and actually, it looks like in my spreadsheet, I have one more question left right here.
Oh?
Just one left. One remaining golden question. A golden crest. But it looks like, wait a minute, we actually have two questions. I got one more that just came in, by the way. But yeah, we have two more.
Oh, dang. And so with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Uncovered Cube, who said, what country has a bigger stronghold on Venezuela? Is it China or is it Russia?
Let's see. It would most likely be the Chinese, because the Chinese are the ones that have the significant financial investments in the ongoing drilling in Lake Maracaibo, or Maracaibo. I'm not really sure which way that's pronounced. But they're the ones who have significant financial investments inside of Venezuela and have provided them with more weaponry than the Russian Federation. So the Chinese clearly have the stronger grip on Venezuela as far as a sphere of influence than the Russian Federation would individually. So I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Nick. And he said, did you guys see the news of the U.S. lawmaker wanting to bring back privateering against sanctioned ships?
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff that comes out of the Congress these days. There's someone that says that the Ukrainian government is persecuting and executing Christians, if I'm not mistaken, right now. And there's some other people who say like there's all kinds of crazy stuff that comes out of the Congress. It really is quite concerning, folks, because it comes from every political angle. And it doesn't really seem like a lot of them really are like grounded in reality. It's like they live in a fantasy land where they like live in this weird world that doesn't exist. But I did hear about that. Privateering is probably not going to be happening though, because the age of sail, which is where privateering was king, it doesn't exist anymore, and it's really hard, if not incredibly difficult, to sponsor, support, or operate any sort of privateering operations in the modern day and age, due to how modern sovereignty exists. It would be like say we allowed letters of marque. So some guy gets a pontoon boat and say an anti-tank rifle, and he goes down to Venezuela on his pontoon boat. It's probably not going to have the range. You probably have to buy a yacht or something like that, which is incredibly expensive for most. And on top of that, it's not really made for longer seafaring operations or any high level of efficiency. Then if you wanted to resupply, you would either have to sail all the way back to Florida, or you would have to go to some sort of a surrounding country or Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico would be quite easy to pull off a resupply there, but any other surrounding area from there, that'd be quite difficult to pull off a resupply. Not a lot of countries would want to get involved in not only supplying but arming privateers that are involved in those operations, so it'd be pretty difficult logistically to support those sorts of privateering operations. And besides, the Navy itself can generally conduct seizures of vessels, which is basically privateering, lawfully without the need for privateers these days due to its extended range and its excessive capabilities, especially compared to what existed in the 18th century when privateering was incredibly common. And so with that, folks, it is time for us to move on and into the end of this stream, because that was actually the last question of the night. Can y'all believe that, folks? I gotta say, it's been, oh, goodness gracious.
Holy
we just
moly,
got a $50
super chat.
Oh, look at that.
$50 super chat from Gabby White, who just said, Christmas, pocket change. And we do appreciate that, Gabby White, very much right there. A little Xmas, a little Christmas, pocket change. We do appreciate that.
I gotta say, that is truly incredible right there, Gabby. And I gotta thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help us to be able to have a little bit of Christmas pocket change. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, folks, on that very generous and very kind of you note, it's time for us to round this thing on out for the night. I gotta thank you all so much once again for watching tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run the stream for all of y'all. Over the course of the stream, we had 12.1 thousand people here, and 84,000 people have watched the stream before it rounded out. We're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had each and every single one of y'all here, and we will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next the next 48 hours of the news from around the world. And if we have enough news to cover a short war video, y'all will be getting the short war video from me tomorrow, the Enforcer. And so with that, we will see you all either tomorrow for a short war video or guaranteed on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all once again for helping to make the fundraiser tonight for Nova Ukraine another huge success, by the way, almost doubling the original goal, very close to doubling it, actually. And a huge shout out to everybody for making that possible once again tonight. And we will see you all on the next Nightly War News stream on Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, and also maybe midday tomorrow for a short war video if there was enough news to cover. If there is enough news to cover, that is. Not in the past tense, I'm talking about the future tense. But in that case, folks, of course, Slava Ukraine, Hero Slava, get some rest, and good night.